Sunday, February 28th, 1988, and the dawn of a new era in Australian motorsport as Melbourne's new $20 million Calder Park Thunderdome awaits the start of the Goodyear NASCAR 500. Super speedway stock car racing makes its debut in Australia today, and the 25-strong American contingent includes Daytona 500 victor Bobby Allison, last weekend's Richmond 400 winner Neil Bonnet, and World 600 champ Kyle Petty. NASCAR racing might be new to the land down under, but that's not to say the Aussies aren't ready to answer a bicentennial challenge. Road course regulars Alan Grice, Dick Johnson and Jim Richards head the Calder cast in company with sprint car supremo Gary Rush. They may not be first up winners, but all are fast learners. The impressive Calder Thunderdome measures 1¼ miles or 2.01 kilometres with a pair of 24-degree bank corners. The Australian television network welcomes viewers throughout the United States, England, Europe, Southeast Asia, New Zealand and coast to coast across Australia for episode 1 of NASCAR's Down Under Thunder.
Hello and welcome on the Australian television network to our telecast of the Goodyear 500, the first NASCAR stock car race ever held outside of North America. And of course it's being held at the Calder Thunderdome in Melbourne. A special welcome to our viewers throughout the United States and Europe. What a special event this is going to be for them as well. A great day here in Melbourne, a little cloud around but otherwise sunny. South to southeasterly winds strengthening this afternoon. Top temperature 21 degrees, I reckon it's reached that already, and it's drawn a huge crowd in here. The good weather plus the promise of a thrill that they've not seen down under before. NASCAR stock car racing, it really is something, and qualifying was absolutely something as well, and the big gun Americans are on the front row of the grid. Let's take a look at the way they lined up, and they qualified here at more than 226 kilometres an hour. Neil Bonnet from Alabama on the front row of the grid, along with his Bobby Allison, the recent winner of the Daytona 500. Then the Australian duo Alan Grice in the Foster's Oldsmobile and Robin Best in a Chevy, followed by Ron Esau from the United States in 5th position in the Oldsmobile, then David Sosby from the US in a Chevy, Bill Venturini from the United States in a Chevy Monte Carlo as well, Herschel McGriff also from the USA in a Chevy, and Ray Collins from the USA in an Oldsmobile Delta, and 10th spot Sumner McKnight also of the US. So you can see that the United States have got a pretty big representation there at the head of the grid. 8 out of the top 10 qualifiers, but Grice and Best right in there behind the top 2 rather, and really pushing them hard. Let's go to Mike Raymond now to look at the history of NASCAR racing and its big move down under.
NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Racing, was formed in the United States 40 years ago by Daytona businessman Bill France. From humble beginnings, NASCAR has grown to be the most successful and influential motorsport sanctioning body in the world today, though Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone might not agree. Spectator support of NASCAR Winston Cup events has escalated to the point where this year's 29-race calendar is headed towards another sellout. Last year, over 2.7 million fans turned out for the 30-race schedule, contributing significantly to the prize and season point fund of $13.3 million, a far cry from those early days.
It's hard to believe the progress that the sport has made over the years. We thought that we were running for some pretty good prize money back then when you could win the Daytona 500 and win about $25,000. And you thought, boy, that's a big day. But now they get upwards of $200,000, and even the smallest race on the circuit pays more now than the Daytona 500 did back then.
NASCAR teams today enjoy the backing of the biggest million-dollar corporate sponsors in the sport, but not all are aligned to the motor industry. Familiar racing faces are used extensively to sell a variety of products from thirst quenchers to headache powders, film, a selection of beers, automobile paint, pepperoni pizza, washing detergent, motor oil, domestic airlines, cigars, and naturally tyres with grip. Why then has NASCAR stock car racing been so successful while other forms of automobile competition have floundered? There's an old saying, what wins on Sunday sells on Monday, and that probably explains why America's leading car manufacturers openly admit to being paid-up participants.
Well, that certainly was the belief and theory in the beginning, and unproven and untried 40 years ago. But I think the proof is the involvement today of all the major car makers in America. Ford is heavily involved, General Motors is heavily involved, Chrysler has been involved. Don't have a car right now that can be used, but they'll be back in the next few years.
The simple reason for NASCAR's success is the door-to-door, bumper-to-bumper style of racing at speeds approaching 212 miles an hour. Drafting on the banked ovals has become an art form, and races are often won and lost in the shuffle out of the final corner after 500 miles of competition. Calder Park Thunderdome is the first NASCAR layout to be constructed outside the United States and represents a 4-year, $20 million investment by promoter Bob Jane. Millions of tons of earth had to be brought in to build the circuit and spectator banks which surround the 1.4-mile tri-oval. The task of preparing the track base was difficult enough. Machinery had to be cabled to avoid toppling down the 24-degree bank corners, and the coatings of asphalt gave workmen a few anxious moments. Throughout the construction of Calder Thunderdome, Bob Jane has remained adamant his super speedway would succeed and create a new era of motorsport entertainment in this country.
I'm inundated with people who want to kiss me and shake my hand and tell me all these superlative things about what a great racetrack I've got, including the American journalists and American drivers. So I'm afraid, not afraid, bad word, we've done obviously more than we thought we've done, because the accolades from the United States people that are here indicate we've done better than we thought.
It's a beautiful place. The track looks nice. You know, I started around there earlier today and had trouble, but I'm really very well impressed with the whole facility. It's a beautiful entrance, and you know, the tunnel from the garage work area here into the pit area is something I think every track in the U.S. could use, and the place itself is just beautiful.
We had heard a lot about it, and it was designed after Charlotte, North Carolina, but it's a lot more complete than I expected. To me, the new tracks, you know, they build the track, but they don't build any facilities with it right to start with. And here it's great, the nice garages, the pit areas, and probably best of all is the welcome that we've had in Australia. It's been great being here the few days I've been here. I'm looking forward to, you know, a really good Sunday and a really good race.
NASCAR and super speedway stock car racing today becomes a fact of life in Australia. $1 million end-of-season event is on the drawing board for November, and for '89, well, Jane hopes his pride and joy will host the grand final of the Winston Cup Series.
Calder Thunderdome, it's been quite a transformation, hasn't it? But then you'd want to see some change for your $20 million. Well, the fans are absolutely pouring in here to see what Bob Jane has wrought with the Calder Thunderdome, and they are turning up in their tens of thousands. There are an estimated 35,000 people here at the moment, and the queues are still 3 and 4 kilometres back down the road towards Melbourne as people try to get in preparation for the start of the race in 20 minutes from now. The drivers have just been taken around a parade lap and got a huge reception, and they are really going to turn something loose here this afternoon. This has brought together an amazing cross-section of Australian motorsport, perhaps that they've never brought together before. The people that normally follow touring car racing, of course, have come out of curiosity to see what's going on, and the speedway fans that have been dying for this kind of thing to happen in Australia for decades have turned out in tens of thousands, as I said, just to see what's going on here this afternoon. And I'll tell you what's going on. There's going to be a lot of crash and burn, and we'll be back to see it after this. The Calder Thunderdome. You're in for a new experience here on the Australian Television Network this afternoon. NASCAR stock car racing. It's all about going round in circles, and nobody knows better than that about doing it rather than Neil Crompton.
We should get something perfectly clear. These beasts are not NASCARs, as some would describe them. They're stock cars. NASCAR stands for the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, as we have CAMS, the Confederation of Australian Motorsport. NASCAR, the body that presides over stock car racing, has almost uniquely bred a form of motorsport where performance equality is of paramount importance. No one brand of vehicle is particularly dominant. However, the classic Ford-GM battle is alive and well, with Chrysler contemplating a return to the ovals in the near future. The players cover Ford's sleek Thunderbird and a variety of GM toys, including the popular Chevy Monte Carlo, Pontiac Grand Prix, Buick LeSabre and Oldsmobile Delta 88. The thin sheet metal disguise of these chunky beasts hides a thoroughbred racer. The heavy-duty tubular space frame design ties together 3,500 pounds or 1,600 kilograms of car. The capacity of the engine is limited to 358 cubic inches, or 6 litres, and the way the power goes to the ground is regulated via 12-inch control Goodyear tyres on 9.5-inch rims. The no-nonsense rules work because they're strictly enforced, and NASCAR officials pay attention to detail, so nobody bends the rules or anything else.
They went to a template system several years ago, and so the bodies can't be cheated in any way. The officials have a template that they set on the car that makes the car conform to a certain body style so that the drivers can't lay back the windshields or alter the body configuration in any way. That makes the cars very evenly matched.
If you think oval track racing is easy, then think again. Going truly fast is a complex problem to solve, as we found out during the World Touring Car Championship. But what of the real thing?
I'll tell you what, it's a deal where you prepare the race car, everybody works together and works real hard. And once you go out there in that race car, you're on your own, more or less. There's 30 guys you want to beat, and it doesn't matter who you're racing against, you don't want to finish second. What makes it so great for the fans, though, the guy inside of that race car is driving a car they can purchase and drive down the street.
Well, it's the body of rules that NASCAR brings to the circuit. They have the tech officials to enforce those rules. All of us come with basically the same equipment, and our individual motivation's what gets us up to the front.
So, Gary, there's no doubt that no matter how you look at it, NASCAR stock car racing is extremely popular.
Well, it's extremely popular, all right, if you judge by the people streaming through the turnstiles here this afternoon. As I said, it's going to be a new experience for our Australian television network viewers. It's going to be a new experience for most of our commentators as well, but not for the next man you're about to meet, the editor of National Speed Sports News from the United States and one of the most respected motorsports commentators in the USA. Good afternoon, Chris Economaki.
Thank you, Gary. I'm standing out here on pit road, and the pits are going to be a very important place today. This is Neil Bonnet's pit. He's on the pole. 3 sets of tires here at $170 a piece. They expect to use those. If things go green all day long, he'll stop at every 80 laps, but that's likely not to happen. Yellow flags, they come in to make adjustments to tune the car. The pits will be an important place, and we'll be here to report. Back to you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Chris Economaki. Well, qualifying is what it's all about when it comes to getting your position set on the grid for the start of one of these races. All important, of course, as it is in any motorsport. And Mike Raymond now takes a look at the Park Royal pole qualifying.
The magnificent Park Royal Hotel on St Kilda Road has played host to many of the American and Australian NASCAR teams this week. So the battle for yesterday's Park Royal pole spot had the drivers anxious to collect. In a departure from traditional NASCAR qualifying procedure, drivers had the opportunity to better their Friday best with a Saturday session. Friday's top 10 showed Neil Bonnet with quick time in the Valvoline Pontiac over Bobby Allison, with Aussie Alan Grice third. Fourth quick was Chad Little, fifth Californian Ron Esau, then Australian Robin Best from Bob Howard, Dave Marcus, Glenn Stewart and Gary Collins. Goodyear sweetened the pole shootout with $10,000, and that was all the incentive the drivers needed to turn up the wick. First to respond was Tasmanian Robin Best, who cut a perfect lap in the number 88 Monte Carlo. He shaved almost a full second from Friday's qualifying run, jumping 2 spots and into the second row. Not so fortunate was NASCAR veteran Dave Marcus in the 71 Chevrolet. He was 8th quick on Friday, but this wild slide put paid to his chances, and he was bumped 7 positions. Alan Grice, the sentimental Australian favourite in the Foster's Oldsmobile, did not let down his supporters. He charged around the 1 1/4 mile oval in 28.971 seconds to bump Bobby Allison off the front row.
Well, we've gone back to the setup we had on Thursday. Friday was very hot, as you know, and we lost our car. We lost more than half a second. But we've gone back to the setup for this sort of temperature, if you like, and that's brought the speed back to the car.
Allison responded quickly to the challenge. He gunned the number 12 Buick deep into the first corner to set up an ideal entry to the back straight. From there, it was plain sailing. A lap of 28.847 seconds, and Grice was back to the second row. However, the best on the day was delivered by Neil Bonnet in the Raymock Pontiac. He also took the car deep into the first turn and never lifted off the throttle, setting up the fastest time of the day, 28.829 seconds, marginally slower than his Friday mark, but $10,000 richer from Goodyear and the Park Royal pole for today's NASCAR 500.
Boy, it feels good. You know, we brought a good race car over here, and we thought we'd been in good shape, but boy, Bobby put us to work today. He's right there with us. We beat him like a couple of hundredths of a second, and Alan Grice really picked up today. We're going to have our work cut out for us come Sunday.
So here's how the top 10 will line up for today's Goodyear 500. Pole to Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Pontiac. Position 2, Bobby Allison in the Buick. Row 2 is the Aussie connection, Grice from 3 and Robin Best from 4. Position 5 is Californian Ron Esau. 6, David Sosby in the Ford. 7, Chicago's Bill Venturini. 8, the Medicare Master, 60-year-old Herschel McGriff. 9 is Gary Collins in an Oldsmobile. And 10, Summer McKnight's Thunderbird. Not long after qualifying finished, Venturini gave his crew some overnight work when he got loose and found the inside wall. Who was it who said, practice makes perfect?
Welcome back to the Calder Thunderdome. The cars are in the lane and about to go out on the track in preparation for a start to the Goodyear NASCAR 500. And this is going to be quite a spectacle. They've turned on quite a spectacle here at Calder already today for the fans at trackside, and you are about to see one. It's quite a busy scene down there. As you can see, the drivers, all the last-minute preparations complete and in their cars, ready to take to the track, just awaiting for the signal to get out there and begin the lineup. There's Dick Johnson's car, number 17, the familiar number, an unfamiliar car, Ford Thunderbird. And this car was a previous pole winner at Daytona, so it knows how to fly. Dick is at the back of the field, unfortunately. Didn't have the best of luck in qualifying, Neil Crompton.
Had a dreadful run. The guy was looking very strong on Wednesday and Thursday, and then backed the car into the wall and literally rode off the back. And a great shot there of the man behind the Calder Thunderdome, Bob Jane, and a well-known Aussie in the middle.
Yeah, who's on the left?
I'd say that's the owner of the Tall Australian. A marvellous atmosphere here today at Calder Park Thunderdome, awaiting the start of the Goodyear 500. And we hope that you're enjoying the scenes here, an absolute packed audience here for the first NASCAR event to be held in Australia. And if you think the crowd is big here, we have been told there is a crowd about 6 kilometres back trying to get into Calder Thunderdome as well. So it'll be one of the really big crowds of Australian motorsport. Jimmy Richards, the Australian Touring Car champion, driving the second of the Foster's cars. Jim has been exceptionally quick around here. Told me earlier this morning he's planning just to finish the race. No heroics, would like desperately to finish in the top 5 if that is at all possible. And anything's possible, of course. We have 2 of NASCAR's finest sharing the front row today. Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Raymock Pontiac, and of course Bobby Allison, the Daytona 500 winner. But right behind them, of course, those 2 Australians who are going to be there in the opening laps, Alan Grice and Tasmanian Robin Best, who did a great job here in qualifying yesterday. Let's go trackside now for the words to get the field underway.
Imagine they'll give them about 2 laps before we even look at a green, so we can and warm them up, make sure.
Bob Jane at this moment, we're just waiting to cross down, and I think it's only fitting that Bob Jane will give the signal, the starting command for the cars to come out on the racetrack for 280 circuits here today. That constitutes 500 kilometres. The Goodyear 500.
Magnificent owner, magnificent racetrack.
Let's go down now to the starting command.
Thank you very much. It is given me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to say in the United States, gentlemen, start your engines.
And the engines start. Neil Bonnet on the inside row. Bobby Allison fires in the number 12 Buick. Right behind them, of course, the second row. Alan Grice in the blue Foster's Oldsmobile. Robin Best of Tasmania in the 88 car. And it won't be too long before the new Group A Commodore brings the starting field of 32 cars out onto the Speedway Oval here at Calder Thunderdome.
So it's a very colourful sight and something that we've looked forward to for a long time in Australian motorsport. I, for one, was perhaps one of the sceptics in the beginning. Not quite sure how to handle this NASCAR stock car racing. The mean end of the Pontiac there, Brad Noxinger's car number 96, well known to American sprint car fans, having a think only his second run in a NASCAR stock car. But having watched these cars on Thursday and Friday, enjoyed yesterday's qualifying shootout for the Park Royal pole position, I must say that I'm converted there, averaging 140 miles an hour around this circuit, which is, of course, 2.01 kilometres. And I say a circuit because it's not just a straight old oval. You don't just belt into the turns and keep your foot on the gas. It really requires a lot of skill. That's Neil Bonnet's car number 75, the Valvoline Pontiac, the man that won last weekend's round of the Winston Cup Series, sharing the front row with car number 12, Bobby Allison, the Daytona 500 winner of 1988. In fact, we should take a look at all 32 starters in today's Goodyear NASCAR 500. And starting from pole position, Neil Bonnet with a time of 28.829 seconds in the Valvoline Pontiac. From 2, Bobby Allison in car 12, 28.847. From 3, car 3, Foster's Oldsmobile Delta, driven by Alan Grice. And from 4, from Tasmania, Robin Best in the AWA entry. From 5, car 78, Ron Esau in the Eurovox Oldsmobile at 29.149. From 6, car number 81, David Sousby, 29.157 in the Chevy. From 7.25, miraculously getting back on the track, Bill Venturini after that crash in yesterday afternoon's qualifying session. From 8, car number 98, one of the old guys in the field, but certainly not down on talent, that's Herschel McGriff. From 9, 28 is Gary Collins, 29.664. And from 10, car number 83, Sumner McKnight, a former Speedway ace, two-wheel ace, at 29.564. That's in the Ford Thunderbird, one of 2 of those cars in this event. As I said before, a total of 32. Some other interesting ones that we're certainly going to be keeping a very close eye on will include Jim Richards and Gary Rush, 7-time Australian Sprint Car champion, back on row 13, positions 25 and 26. Both of them driving Oldsmobiles, and both of them are going to be pretty dangerous in this race once they get the hang of what's going on.
Glenn Stewart, who starts from row number 6 from position 11 on the inside. Chad Little, top Californian, starting out of position number 12. Ruben Garcia and Bob Howard make up row 7. Dave Marcus, a NASCAR regular, and Bill Schmidt constitute row number 8. Harry Gallart and JC Danielson from row number 9. Row 10 is, of course, Terry Petrus in the Chevrolet, and Terry Byers from Wollongong in the Tooheys entry. He's done very well. Just look at the fans. Now as the field comes past the grandstand, everyone standing, waving baseball caps, cheering. As the field goes by on the parade lap, should only be a couple of laps before the pace car comes off the circuit, and they're off and running in the Goodyear 500. Coming to you live from Calder Park Thunderdome on the 7 network across Australia.
That pace car is something a little different to Australian motorsport enthusiasts. It's the new Holden Group A SS, a car due for its racing release sometime early April for the 3rd round of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. And what a mean machine it is. And Holden Motorsport, one of the many sponsors backing today's Thunderdome opening.
Well, the pace car brings the cars off turn number 2 onto the back straight. 24-degree bank turns either end here at Calder Thunderdome. You'll see a lot of drafting down the back straight. As the cars head up into turn 3, Bobby Allison and Neil Bonnet were doing a little practice at that late yesterday afternoon. There's the field going by. Sitting behind the Commodore pace car, heading up into turn 3 at the moment. You also mentioned Gary Rush, Neil, starting out of row 13 in the Repco Gold Star Engines entry, car number 2. He'll share that row with Jimmy Richards in car number 1, the second of Foster's Oldsmobiles. Jim, of course, started his career on the dirt tracks in New Zealand.
I know there'll be a lot of fans in Wollongong watching very closely the performance of Terry Byers.
The Foster's girls taking advantage of the sunshine. It's a little cool out here today, but plenty of colour in the pit area as the field comes by. Behind the pace car, and we already have one moving into the pits. Looks like
Michael Waltrip, car number 30, stuck the car into the wall on Wednesday, took the right-hand side off the car. Must have some sort of a minor problem. They've raised the rear boot lid, leaving 31 cars circulating around the oval. Terry Byers, incidentally, having qualified on row 10, position 20 in the Chevrolet, the Tooheys entry.
Waltrip picks the pace up. You might actually see him come out and join the field from the pit lane. So whatever the problem was, he's been able to remedy it, and here he comes now.
Michael said that we Australians have done a fine job of engineering this course. He said, in fact, Australian walls are just as good as American walls, and he can testify to that.
So can Bill Venturini. We saw him wipe his car out in late practice yesterday afternoon. They spent 150 man-hours overnight rebuilding the front end of the car to get it back on the track today.
really was a marvellous performance and helped out no end by John Shepherd Automotive, the company that's a part of the Calder Park complex here that put together so many of the cars that are in this event being driven by the Australians.
I think you'll see quite a sprint up front from the front row. The two winners of the NASCAR circuit this year, pole sitter Neil Bonnet, winner of the Richmond 400 last weekend, and on the outside of the front row, Bobby Allison, who of course won the Daytona 500 a fortnight ago. Pace car might be just about ready to head to pit lane.
Pace car being driven by John Harvey.
Yes, and the pace car comes off the racetrack and we're about set for the start. Under the control of Bill Gazaway of NASCAR, the field comes down for the start. It'll be a slow one, obviously, and it's Bonnet on the inside, and Bonnet will get the jump. Bonnet is away. Bobby Allison trails. Alan Grice did not miss the start. He moves up very quickly on them, and Robin Best, in fact, was very, very slow to get away. Bonnet will lead them through turn number 1, through 2 now, working the back straight, clear of Bobby Allison. Alan Grice starting to pick them up as they head down there. Robin Best is the next one to go through. Sosby also well positioned, so too is Brad Knopfsinger. Watch them work the bank turns now as they come in for the completion of the first lap. And Alan Grice already up and making a challenge on Bobby Allison. Down through the tri-oval, the crowd has gone berserk here as Grice goes down on the inside looking for racing room, but Allison is an old hand. He'll hold out. Here's Grice again coming off the second turn, working the back straight. The Foster's Oldsmobile with Australian Alan Grice going through up into second as Michael Waltrip comes in and back out of the pits.
What an incredible performance from Alan Grice on the previous lap through turns 3 and 4. Had the car cocked completely sideways, got himself into a position to be able to attack Bobby Allison as they cross the line. We've got Bonnet leading from Grice, then Allison, Robin Best from Tasmania, followed by car number 78, and that's Ron Esau.
Can Grice move up on the tail of Neil Bonnet? You betcha he can.
Black flag being shown to one of the competitors. Can't quite pick up that number at the moment. Look at how quick these cars are travelling. 170 miles an hour down the straight.
Sir James Davis given the black flag, he pulls out. Neil Bonnet working on lap 3 now. Down through the tri-oval. Grice is close, so too is Bobby Allison. But Bonnet has under control. Grice a good sprint from the second line, now up into second. Bobby Allison sitting in the draft of Alan Grice as they come off turn number 2 now, out to the back straight. And they have probably opened up 4 or 5 car lengths over Robin Best of Tasmania, who runs in 4th.
Wonder why they call it the Thunderdome. If you had the benefit of being able to sit here, the concrete moves beneath your feet as these cars travel down the front straight. Bonnet, 75, Alan Grice, Foster's Oldsmobile, then Bobby Allison, car number 12, Robin Best, Ron Esau. Brad Knopfsinger up there doing well as well.
And we take race cam now from Alan Grice's car, the Foster's Oldsmobile, as he heads down the back straight. He's tailing Neil Bonnet, car number 75, the Valvoline Pontiac, and they're already coming up on a slow car to put a lap. We'll watch Bonnet try and work down the inside here, and Grice sits in pretty tight as well.
It's Michael Waltrip. Bonnet goes by. Grice now has his chance to attack, goes to the outside, punches the brake pedal, turns the car in. There's a real rise in the road there. A 1,600 kilogram car starts to get very light, and then it's hard on the power down the back. This is the very fast turn 3 entry. Southern end of the course. 4 or 5 car lengths to our race leader, and we have a car that spun in turn 2. So Bonnet leads as the yellow flag comes out. Car 75 from Alan Grice in 03, then Bobby Allison.
One car actually had a half lose on the back straight. We'll pick the number up for you in a moment, but the NASCAR officials were very quick to bring out the yellow. Make sure the driver can complete the lap, or if he heads into the pit area. The driver who actually went off down on the infield was the driver of car number 18. It was 18, Glenn Sturer, who had a lose coming off turn number 2 onto the back straight. And the field now is under caution. Yellow flag up. Pace car will come out onto the circuit. 1 or 2 laps around behind the pace car. It gives Grice an opportunity to sit in behind Neil Bonnet. Also an opportunity for us to recap how they're running in the field at the moment. Michael Waltrip coming back into the pit area. He's not having the best of races.
Pace car's missing in action. Oh, there it is up at the next turn, turn 1.
Bonnet leading from Grice. Allison, Robin Best still in there. Car number 78 is the next driver, Ron Esau, the Oldsmobile.
Also mixed up in there is David Soosby.
pace car you can see on the circuit at the moment.
There's Michael Waltrip's car with the bonnet up. I think that's his third trip to the pits. One of the regulars in the Winston Cup Series. Let's just take a look at what happened on turn 2 just 2 laps ago. Glenn Sturrer on the Goodyear replay, getting well and truly out of shape, but out of harm's way beneath the yellow line and down low on the racetrack, and the cars under the yellow flag at the moment in behind the Group A Holden Commodore, and the field looking clean once more. We might be back in for a restart in just a moment. Michael Waltrip's car, the bonnet down again. Let's hope he can get back out. It's been a dreadful weekend for him, but he's really enjoying his time in Australia, as are all the Americans. Great performance from Grice in the opening stanza.
Certainly was. Whether or not he can go with bonnet now for the restart and get up very quickly. Robin Best got caught unawares coming up for the start, and Grice is an old hand at this NASCAR racing after one race at Charlotte. He knew he wasn't going to get caught behind them, so he made the jump on Best and was able to take Bobby Allison. That's no mean feat.
Incidentally, Neil Bonnet, the guy that leads the field at the moment in car 75, the Valvoline Pontiac, enjoys this weekend his first pole position since March 1985 at the Motorcraft 500 back at Atlanta in the Winston Cup Series. And having won last weekend's Richmond 400, he's on certainly a roll at the moment and looking very confident. That's the shot from the Foster's car race cam. Alan Grice at the wheel. Second time in a NASCAR stock car for Alan, and this year, unfortunately for Australian race fans, not spending as much time in Australia. He has signed a deal with Nissan Motorsport and will compete in this year's European Touring Car Championship right across the UK and of course Europe, with the new Nissan Skyline expected to make its race debut shortly.
Let's recap how they're running on the track at the moment. Neil Bonnet is your race leader. Alan Grice, of course, running in second spot. Bobby Allison in third. Robin Best of Tasmania in fourth. Ron Esau in fifth spot at the moment. Sixth is, of course, Herschel McGriff. We'll talk more about Herschel later. Seventh is David Soseby. Eighth is Bill Venturini, marvellous effort. Ninth, Summer McKnight. And in 10th spot, Gary Collins. Those positions on our Castrol scoreboard.
Michael Waltrip has made another trip to the pits. That's his fourth. He's done more trips to the pits than most of them have done laps.
Pace car's off. We should get a restart here. Lights off on the pace car. It ducks down pit road, and they'll come in quickly here for the start. Bonnet builds up the pace. Alan Grice goes with him. Right behind them, Bobby Allison is quick to move, and so too is Robin Best, but it's Bonnet stretching it as they come down for the restart, heading towards turn number 1 off the tri-oval. And your race leader, Neil Bonnet, doing it for Valvoline and the Raymock Pontiac. He works onto the back straight. Grice is going to have a bit of competition here from Bobby Allison shortly. He runs in second. Allison is third. Then back to Tasmanian Robin Best. No one's put a glove on Best at this stage. And it's Allison actually starting to tailgate now with Alan Grice. They're coming off turn number 4. Watch the movement of the cars as they come down through the tri-oval. Heading past the start-finishing line towards turn number 1. Will Allison make his move down on the inside? It might even sit here behind Alan Grice for a lap. He doesn't want to let Bonnet get too far away. There's the gap. Second to third. Bobby Allison, number 12 in the Buick.
There is quite a gap between third and fourth. Robin Best from Tasmania in fourth spot, but the top three getting away from him at this stage. Bonnet leading the way from Grice and Allison. The big three.
Stuart Grice is running in pretty proud company up there at the head of the field. The two NASCAR main event winners for season 88. Neil Bonnet, super cool driver as we take race cam again, heading down the back straight. There's the tail of the Valvoline Pontiac.
See Alan Grice punching the brake as he heads the car into turn 3. Fighting at the wheel, it's a physical sport. Into the tri-oval section of Calder Thunderdome. And still about 4 car lengths behind race leader Neil Bonnet. They punch the brakes pretty severely here as they bring the cars back down to the low line. Get an idea of the speed from this shot. Those cars are travelling pretty quickly, lap average 140 miles an hour, and the top 3 now starting to extend quite a gap over Robin Best, who holds down 4th from Ron Esau, then Herschel McGriff and Dave Marcus, another of the Winston Cup regulars.
Through the tri-oval once again. Down into turn number 1. Race cam. with Alan Grice at the controls of the Foster's Oldsmobile.
See the rise in the road, the car gets very light, and Bobby Allison now setting up for an attack on Alan Grice, an Australian in an American sandwich at the moment.
Big mover in the field is Dave Marcus from the United States, started from row 8, 15th qualifying position, now up to 7th spot.
Well, the pressure's going to be on Alan Grice here as Bobby Allison starts to make the run down the inside, and here he comes. Allison in the number 12 Buick, Alan Grice in the number 03 Foster's Oldsmobile. There's our race cam shot. Allison poking the nose now of the Buick down on the inside of the Oldsmobile, and a touch then. A touch, and there has gone. Bobby Allison has it. Grice has gone. He's got a park and he's skidding sideways across the infield.
The crowd has gone absolutely crazy in front of the commentary box. Grice has managed to survive, but pointing the wrong way.
Yellow flag is out.
Yellow flag out. Alan Grice.
Well, I thought it was Allison that may come off second best in that one, but you're not a Daytona 500 winner and a 30-year expert at this caper and come off second best in those confrontations. And talking of best, that'll slip Robin Best up to third.
Yes, it will, and Grice is going to have to do that all over again. He got control of the car back again.
He'll have the world's biggest flat spots on those Goodyear tyres at the moment.
Yes, well, if he's really quick about it, he'll either come straight back into the pits now, put a fresh set of rubber on and go out, because he's going to have to do it from almost the back of the field anyway.
He actually passed a car under the yellow flag then too. In fact, he's charging back through the field. I wonder what he's up to. Take a look at our Goodyear replay of this incident. That's Grice spinning down low, Bobby Allison up on the high line, and neatly reverses at 150 mile an hour over the Goodyear sign. So Alan Grice, the first real victim of the front runners. It's the race cam view. There was came together as they came out of turn 4. Just enough to tap Alan Grice out of business.
There's our Goodyear replay, and the man who's been watching the action in the pits is Chris Economaki. Let's go down to Chris.
Okay, Robin Best has taken advantage of the yellow flag to get some work done on his car. Obviously, he wants the chassis setting, but I'm surprised that Alan Grice hasn't shown up yet. We're in his pit. Now, they're going to have to change tires on Grice's car because he flat-spotted them, and he's due in any moment. Robin Best has gone out. Neil Bonnet, the leader, has radioed his pit. He said despite the fact that he's leading, his car's a little bit loose, which means that when he turns into the corners, the back end wants to come around. So when Neil Bonnet stops, that's the adjustment they'll make on car 75. The question in my mind, from my limited vision in the pits here, is where's Alan Grice? Back to you.
Well, we know where he is, Chris. He's still tucked in down the back of the field, only 3 cars behind him, or 4 cars behind him.
He's right behind Gary Rush at the moment.
That could be a major error on the part of the Grice strategy. There's the race cam.
Gary Rush in the yellow car immediately in front of Alan Grice, and there are only 3 cars behind him. So that has cost him very dearly.
Foster's teammates, Jim Richards, 2 cars ahead.
Still under the yellow caution flag.
And the starter giving the signal for 1 more lap before a restart. Michael Waltrip having rejoined the tail of the field after yet another trip to the pits. Bonnet, Allison, Ron Esau, Herschel McGriff, Dave Marcus. Then car number 73, Bill Schmidt. Bill Venturini in the rebuilt car, followed by car 81, David Sousby.
That'll give you an idea how many cars still sit behind Alan Grice at the tail of the field. Only 3.
Well, he's in 29th place then, because there are 32 runners, and they're all out there still.
Looks like Tony Spanos, 48. It's blown a seal from what we understand.
Okay, 31 cars then.
So Tony Spanos is in the pits. Tony has been away racing in the States. He's an Australian driver who has been trying to qualify over there for a couple of events and is driving this James Hilton prepared car here today. They've got some major problems though. Doesn't look like Tony's going anywhere in a hurry. He's already out of the car.
I better get those spanners to work.
Might get a restart very shortly because lights are off on the pace car. Pace car, in fact, is starting to pick the pace up just a little bit, and they should be coming in.
Lap 18 of 278. The pace car pulls to the infield.
Don't worry about the car sitting there on the inside. That's a car that is already down a lap. It's Neil Bonnet who will lead them across the line. Takes the green. Michael Waltrip gets the go-by there on the inside.
Car number 83, Sumner McKnight, made a big run. That's the yellow Ford Thunderbird that you can see about 7 or 8 cars back in turn 1. So it's Bonnet, Allison, Michael Waltrip, many laps down on the road in 3rd position. Then a great strap on at the moment being headed by Herschel McGriff. And the man that I'm really watching carefully here is Dave Marcus. That's a great shot of the speed of these cars. Coming off turn 4 into the tri-oval, Bonnet leads. There's Waltrip mixed up in the bunch, and that great scrap for 3rd placing.
And I tell you, the man who is making a big move down through there is Herschel McGriff. There's Bonnet, though, the race leader. That gives you an indication of the 24-degree bank corners here and just how quickly they go through. Back behind the 2 leaders is a whole wall of cars, and they are really just pacing it out side by side. Pick them up next time they come onto the start finishing straight. 2-horse race out in front. Neil Bonnet doing it for Valvoline and the Raymond Pontiac coming off turn 4. Bobby Allison sits right behind him. Then Ron Esau doing a great job there in 3rd place.
Dave Marcus up to 4th from 15th position at the start, so he is a big mover in this field.
Dave's been having some problems getting the car to handle. Had a big lose yesterday in qualifying. So the time that he set on Friday was the time that stood, and this is the scrap for the lead. Bobby Allison on the inside, and Allison, the Daytona 500 winner, goes to the lead. Neil Bonnet settles back into 2nd place. Buick LeSabre versus the Pontiac into the tri-oval. A long gap back to Ron Esau, Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff. Allison has the answers.
There's our race cam, of course, in Neil Bonnet's Raymond Pontiac. He tails going down the back straight. Race leader, Bobby Allison. Neil punching it down low into the bottom corner.
Had his hand off the wheel, acknowledging something down the back straight.
They work down once again through the tri-oval. Indication of the speed as they thunder through here, and Bonnet's race is not over. Make no mistake, he is going to keep the pressure well and truly on Bobby Allison. And I think he's probably got the better inside line set up as they come off too. They work the back straight, and Bonnet goes back into the lead again on the inside of Bobby Allison. Good move there. Keeps Allison wide now, tucks back on the inside, and they are playing a game of drafts now at probably 240 kilometres an hour, as once again Allison will not accept that. He comes back down on the inside as the 2 of them race down to turn 1, but Bonnet chops. Hangs in there on the outside, and Bobby Allison coming now once again onto the back straight. Bonnet has the run of the race on the outside, but Allison is very quick down through here. How much closer can you get? There's the view from race cam. Bobby Allison just feeding back on the inside. Bonnet again goes down the outside now as the 2 of them go across the start finishing line with about 24 laps completed. Side by side into turn number 1. Look at this. Precision racing, 2 of NASCAR's finest.
Bobby Allison, 50 years of age and still running strong, career earning $6.4 million.
And they're real dollars, they're American
real dollars, not pesos like we've got here, versus the 41-year-old Neil Bonnet.
Well, that scrap continues. Ron Esau is gaining, and so too is Dave and Marcus as they go down to the bottom turn.
Fairly healthy gap back to Ron Esau, although I believe it's just starting to narrow slightly. Then in 4th position, Dave Marcus. That is Neil Bonnet. 2nd in the event. There's the gap. 1st to 4th. The guy just to the right is Neil Bonnet, and the guy you saw a moment ago was Dave Marcus. Allison, Bonnet, Esau, then Marcus, and Herschel McGriff right behind.
Spin out at the back straight, and I think it might be Robert Best.
Yes, one around sideways, but let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Bobby Allison leads the Goodyear 500 from Neil Bonnet. 3rd is Ron Esau. Dave Marcus, a great run, runs in 4th. 5th spot is the veteran Herschel McGriff, 60 years of age. Boy, and he's still doing it strong here this afternoon.
I need more than 2 eyes.
Yeah. Anybody got that speed conversion?
Yeah, I've taped it up there. Oh, right. The prize money. I've got to get these pronunciations right too. I keep changing them. It's so...
Yes, mate. $30 laps completed. Lap 30 of 280 laps, constituting the Goodyear 500. We've been under yellow for the last couple of laps due to the spin by Robin Best, but the pace car is ready to come back into the pits. And it's going to be Bobby Allison to lead away from Neil Bonnet. Ron Esau, right behind him, Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff coming in, ready for the green. Spectators stand in their seats as they go off and go racing, and Marcus makes a big move down the outside here of Ron Esau. One smoking down on the inside as they head into turn number 1. That could be Waltrip.
Yep, Michael Waltrip is blowing smoke. He'll be off next time round.
Heading onto the back straight, Bobby Allison will lead them, but the yellow flag will be out, I believe. Wait and see. They dive into turn number 3. Bobby Allison, Neil Bonnet very closely, and the big mover in the race, Dave Marcus, a regular on the Winston Cup Trail, runs in 3rd place. Ron Esau of California is in 4th. And the yellow flag comes out. There's probably some oil on the racetrack down in turn 1.
It's car 73 that's dumped the oil, and that is Bill Smith.
Bill Smith, of course, has been a regular on the Winston West Tour. But, of course, that original hold-up that we had was caused by Robin Best. We might take a look at that on our Goodyear replay and see actually what happened. There was a tag there. He got a touch from behind. That's Terry Byers, in fact, in the Tui's machine. Feel like a Tui's, I bet he does. Sliding off the course, he got a touch in the tail. So at that time, he came into the pits. He's put fresh rubber on. They carried out a lightning fast pit stop. He's gone back in the field, but he has not lost a lap. Bobby Allison, of course, leads the race at the moment. Bobby Allison, 50 years of age, and boy, what a career in NASCAR competition. They call him the professional, and no doubt about it, one of the big money winners on the trail. Bobby Allison of Hueytown, Alabama, has been burning up the Winston Cup Trail for 27 years. The leader of the Alabama gang is a triple Daytona 500 winner and also took out the national championship back in 1983. He's a past master of the short tracks with career winnings which have just stretched over the $7 million mark. While racing has been kind to Bobby Allison over the years, he's also taken a few wild rides, like this car-destroying act at Talladega last year. A few weeks later, he came back to win the Pepsi Firecracker 400 at Daytona, just to prove you can't keep a good man down. 88 has been great to date for the Alabama Throttle Jammer. He opened a fortnight ago by winning the Daytona 125-mile qualifier, and the next day survived some wild wrecks to land the Goodies 300 Grand National Classic. Day 3, he took the Winston Cup opener in a thrilling last-lap shootout with his own son, Davey. More than anyone else, Bobby Allison wants to be the first NASCAR International winner on foreign soil here today. So place your bets, folks. Heaven knows Mr. Allison is on a roll. Bobby Allison, of course, they're one of our Nissan profile drivers. At the moment, Bill Schmidt, the man who we believe had dropped an engine, all that smoke coming out of the car on the back straight, laying some cement dust down the back straight with some oil on the racetrack. Mechanics are checking over. We've had quite a few cars into the pits.
You may just see on that shot there from race cam in Neil Bonnet's car that Jerry Churchill is rejoining the circuit complex in car number 11. He's made a very brief stop, as has Dick Johnson in the car number 17 that was rebuilt a couple of days ago and came in for fuel by the look of it. I can't imagine why, although he may have just taken the opportunity to top up and try and get some more endurance out of the car. Terry Byers has pitted. Obviously, he flat spotted those tyres in the spin, and Bill Schmidt is still in there with the bonnet raised on that car at the moment.
And Alan Grice came in and out under the yellow flag, the current yellow flag.
Well, so Grice has gone for tyres and probably jacking a little weight around in the car, so he really hasn't lost out too much in that shuffle. Once again, point out that even Chris Economaki believed that Grice should have been in much earlier, probably after he got that slide job right across the infield here on the tri-oval, but he didn't, stayed out there. He did pass quite a number of cars, but at this stage he's going to have to do that all over again. He's back second last car on the field at the moment, but if he's set up properly, just ahead of him on the queue will be Dick Johnson in the red coat Number 17, Ford Thunderbird.
The Redcoats are coming.
Lights still on the pace car. They come down through the tri-oval. The left-hand kick in the front straight. Bobby Allison. That's what we're under, the caution flag at the moment in the Goodyear 500. Lap 34. Keeping in mind for viewers new to this type of racing, every time the cars come across the start-finishing line under the yellow flag, they are scored. That is one more lap completed for each car on the field. The whole idea of course, if you're going to take a pit stop, get in and get out before the field comes around so you don't go down a lap. Michael Waltrip, I tell you, he spent some time on the inside of the racetrack here for the restarts. Under NASCAR racing rules, those cars 1 lap down can actually pull up on the inside line. Everyone that's on the same lap runs the outside line for the restarts.
You know, one of the interesting things about these cars, Michael, is the tyres that are on them. Big, beefy-looking Goodyear slick tyres, but in fact there's a tyre within a tyre. There's an inner tube, a tyre that looks like a touring car tyre that we would know in Australia, then an outer casing, and there are different pressures in each of those 3 elements that make up the overall tyre, and the pressures vary considerably from corner to corner. And obviously in this anti-clockwise racing Thunderdome, it's the right-hand side of the car that works very hard. We'll go into a little bit more detail with that later.
Pace car lights are off. We're about to get a restart.
Yes, we're going to go back to racing on lap number 35, and it will be Bobby Allison on the outside. Neil Bonnet sits right behind him. A great run. Keep your eyes on Dave Marcus, running 3rd at the moment. Ron Esau is 4th. Herschel McGriff is 5th. Summer McKnight is up there, and we're coming in to take the green. We're going back to racing in the Goodyear 500, and streaking away from the pack goes Bobby Allison, but going with him also is Neil Bonnet. They head down to turn number 1. And just watch how closely Dave Marcus is. He has come up through the field, running strongly, as we take race cam now with Neil Bonnet's car working the back straight. And he sits in the draft, and look at Marcus coming up on the inside, the big mover in this field today. Dave Marcus. Allison is caught 1 out and 1 back. He drops to 3rd.
Well,
Bonnet now leads.
These 3 guys were fooling around on the track last night, and it was incredible stuff to watch. Bonnet, Marcus and Allison nose to tail for about 20 laps, just getting their cars right, so they're well rehearsed at this. Marcus runs a little wide coming out of 2. That allows Bobby Allison to get a little lower on the track and put himself into a position to challenge now as they go down towards turn 3. So Allison on the inside. Ron Esau in 4th, and Allison gets through to 2nd.
How close are they as they come across the line? And coming down the inside of the pair of them is Ron Esau. They are 3 wide going down into turn number 1. What a move that one from Esau. He's now put Bobby Allison back 1 spot. And up on the inside too, Esau comes on strong now as he works the back straight.
Marcus went in pretty deep and got wide. That's allowed both Esau and Allison to have another crack, and Allison really trying hard at the moment. Marcus came unstuck yesterday, rushing in too deep. He really breaks late into turns 1 and 3. So the leader at the moment, car number 75, Neil Bonnet, enjoying a fairly decent sort of a gap from Ron Esau, then Bobby Allison, Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff, followed by Sumner McKnight.
And also picking up the draft is the veteran in the field, Herschel McGriff. There's Esau, car number 78. Bobby Allison sits behind him as they go once again up into turn 3. They enter turn 3, and of course they come off the next turn, which is 4, coming down the straight.
Bonnet, 75, Esau, Allison having a little look on the inside as they go down towards turn 1. Those 3 cars have now opened up a reasonable gap over Dave Marcus. This is the battle for 2nd and 3rd. Down the back straight, literally straight as distinct from the tri-oval in the front part of the course. Allison just getting a little closer. These cars, 1,600 kilograms. They move around a lot on the track. They'll expect to make 2 scheduled tyre stops in this event, and they gobble up about 1 litre of gas per lap. 280 laps the journey, and tank capacity around about 83 litres. It gives you some idea of the fuel equation that they have to deal with this afternoon. As we take a look at the Castrol scoreboard for the top 5 placings, Neil Bonnet leading from Ron Esau, then Bobby Allison in 3rd, Dave Marcus 4th, and the veteran Herschel McGriff 5th.
Lap 46 of 280, the Goodyear 500 from Calder, Thunderdome. What a race for the lead. Neil Bonnet, the Valvoline Pontiac, number 75, and right behind him is Bobby Allison, back on his tailpipe again. They come down the back straight. Allison has been running really hot. He's broken away from the other group. Now sits right behind, putting plenty of pressure on race leader Neil Bonnet. And coming off turn 4, he pulled off a beautiful pass a while ago on the inside on Ron Esau. Now they pace it out side by side, down across the line. Can Allison pull it deep into turn number 1? Absolutely flat strap, yes, and he makes it. Bobby Allison goes back into the lead. Neil Bonnet in second place.
Those two guys have opened up a 3.1 second gap over third place Dave Marcus. They're really starting to run away with this. The pace is a cracker. I'll try and get some lap times and see how they compare to their qualifying times. Remember, the car's still running a reasonably heavy load.
Once again, they come down through the tri-oval past the grandstand, and probably with about a 10-length lead over Dave Marcus, Ron Esau, then Herschel McGriff. Back behind them, car number 83, Summer McKnight. And coming through the field, of course, running about 16th at the moment. Well, he's going to alter that as Alan Grice in the Foster's Oldsmobile carrying race cam. Keep in mind, he went to the back of the field and he has been storming back through the pack. We'll watch him through here. Coming up in a whole group of cars. Swings down to the inside. 81 out against the wall. Is Grice going to make it 3 wide with a dive down the inside? No, he'll sit behind the inside car. Lap number 50 complete as the leaders go across the line and Grice comes back through the field. Here he is, swinging down on the inside. Can he make it 3 wide? In front of the grandstands, 88 about to get the run on the inside here from Grice. No. Turn number 1 again, they are tight. But Grice right behind Rick McRae now as they move on to the back straight. Now he gets out of the draft now and comes down the inside of him.
McRae was totally sideways as he went into turn 1 that time. Now Alan Grice gets underneath him, puts the move on, and Grice moving to position number 15 in the field of 30 cars. He is 33 has made it into the pits.
John Krebs in the Oldsmobile, his first pit stop, but there's something pretty wrong with the car. The bonnet's up, they're not going anywhere in a hurry.
That's the Skull Bandit entry from the US.
Whether or not they're going to fire it again to try and get it started, or that is going back behind the wall.
And St James Davis has pulled his car out behind the pit wall as well. That was car number 22.
Meanwhile, up front, the Alabama gang. Car number 12, Bobby Allison in the Buick, and Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Pontiac work the back straight.
If you think these guys are fooling around, they're getting around the circuit in 29 seconds, which is just over half a second off their qualifying pace.
At 224 kilometres an hour.
That's lap average.
Lap average, yeah. So they're topping 300 in the straights, and there's a spin coming into turn 2.
Yes, we've had one go down. There's that Terry Byers again. We'll wait and see. He's up the middle of the racetrack. Now tries to pull it down as the leaders go through. There's the blue smoke, Terry Byers. In the Tui's entry from Wollongong, the Southern Thunder car. All the folks in business houses in Wollongong have been getting right behind Terry Byers and his effort. That's a Junior Johnson car, imported from the United States. And has been very, very well turned out. Byers has been running strongly here today, but he's had a couple of incidents. Was tapped in the tail a little earlier, and he's had another spin down there in turn number 2. He must love it down there. Let's have a look at the replay. Boy, that is lighting up your Goodyear Eagles. Between turns 1 and 2, Terry Byers, and back up the bank it goes. The field comes by.
Well, he's pretty lucky that he didn't rocket back up towards the top of the circuit and then get centre punched by 3 or 4 other cars.
Well, we're under yellow flag. Obviously, they're going to get Byers' car out of there. He'll need a push to get it started.
Car number 11, Jerry Churchill, making his second trip to the pits while the yellow is out. A couple of guys taking an opportunity. Car 89, Bob Howard, comes in the Pennzoil entry and is joined by car number 82, JC Danielson. He's on his second trip to the pits. Give you an idea of what they do in there. That's Rick McRae, car 08. Manual jacking systems. These cars don't have the internal jacking systems of the familiar touring cars that we see in Australia. Plenty of elbow grease required. Churn of fuel goes in.
And here come the leaders in as well. It's
Allison's
going to be busy time. Bobby Allison has come into the pits. Herschel McGriff is also in. Ron Esau. Summer McKnight is in as well.
Lap 55 we're on at the present time. So you can't say there's been any shortage of action.
And I also noticed Gary Rush come into the pits in car number 2, the Repco Gold Star Engines entry. Jimmy Richards comes in. Now this will absolutely open up the field.
Kyle Petty, car number 21, the DK Ulrich car, hasn't had the best of weekends. The winner of last year's Big Charlotte event.
Yes, of course, the World 600. But he's off and running and will get away quickly.
Terry Petrus has been in and out. He's just going to the left of screen there, car 15. Let's go down to the pits and talk with Chris Economaki.
Well, it's interesting what's happening here. Neil Bonnet is apparently going to bypass this yellow flag. They've got 80 laps worth of fuel on that car. Bobby Allison is taking advantage of it. Now, this could win or lose the race for one of those gentlemen. If it's a green flag situation from here to the end, pardon me, Bonnet's going to be in good shape. Allison has just built another pit stop into this race for him by stopping now. Back to you.
Thank you, Chris. Well, one person that will suit is Alan Grice. Just take a look at some of the other cars who missed the pit stop have decided they're coming in now. So you've got two races going, one behind the pace car and the next group of cars coming into the pits, including Herschel McGriff. Michael Waltrip is back in, the 11 car, and Neil Bonnet will lead away Dave Marcus in car number 71. Behind him, John Laws, 28, then Alan Grice, Dick Johnson.
Grice is now in 4th position.
David Sosby is in. Trying to clear a vent, get some more air in there, are they?
Yeah, I think there's got a big overheating problem there. That's happened to a couple of the cars, I've noticed.
They use finesse, don't they?
Yeah, Gary Rush had the same problem. It goes at churn of fuel.
Well, there's a churn of fuel there, okay.
Well, half a churn.
And I think they got problems with the Gary Rush car too on Pit Road. They got the hood up on that, and they were motioning the car backwards and forwards, trying to get it fired. So they've got some major problems. Terry Byers comes in for probably his 3rd set of tyres. And there's Alan Grice, car number 03, the Foster's Oldsmobile, who now finds himself in 5th spot on the racetrack, 5th or 4th. Neil Bonnet, though, with Dave Marcus right behind him for the restart.
I tell you what,
things can change at this type of race.
Exactly the point that I was about to make. We've had about 20 cars duck in and out of that pit lane. It all happened so fast.
Terry Byers from Wollongong, the Tui's entry. Already dealt with Terry and some of the problems he's had.
We've also got Peter McKay down in pit lane with Chris Economaki. We might see whether he can follow up on the problem with Gary Rush.
Track announcers here giving Alan Grice a big send-off. We're going to have one lap before we go back to racing. Lap number 57. Neil Bonnet. 71 Dave Marcus in 2nd. Lap cars go to the inside. Alan Grice certainly won't be going to the inside. He hasn't dropped a lap. Number 14 car, Harry Gallart, comes in the Chevrolet into pit road for a quick stop, but he'll have to get out very quickly. We expect a stop this time. Looks like Gary Rush's number 2 car, Repco Gold Star Engines machine, being pushed behind the wall for some work, or the car might well and truly be out for the rest of the day. Dave Marcus, of course, one of the leading lights today and a regular. Let's have a look at Dave. 46 years of age, driving a Chevrolet Monte Carlo, comes from North Carolina. 572 career starts, 5 major wins, 1 Talladega and the Atlanta 500s. Career earnings, a miserable $2,724,999. One of our Nissan stats here from the Goodyear 500. And a regular nice guy is Dave Marcus.
And a busy man. He heads off tomorrow morning back to the United States to test the IROC cars for Goodyear at Riverside Raceway. He'll arrive there on Tuesday. He'll spend a day testing, and then he's off to the 3rd round of the 88 Winston Cup Series coming up next weekend. These guys do 30 national race meetings.
Getting ready now, I think.
Car.
Yep, getting ready for the restart. The pace car will go to the pit area. Watch Grice, we're keeping an eye on him. Some of the lap cars form up here on the inside line. They're coming off, turn number 4 at the moment. There's Grice, 4th. On the outside line, can he get it fired? Yes, he can. Down for the start. And in fact, it'll be Neil Bonnet to lead away from Dave Marcus in 71. 28 then coming up through the field. Gary Collins into 3rd. And Alan Grice is back to 4th place as they go into turn number 1. Can he pick up the pace? He's certainly very, very close indeed as he works onto the back straight. Goes beneath the 28 car. And Alan Grice, as the crowd goes bananas on the front straight, is now up into 3rd once again on the Goodyear 500. Here's Bonnet, Dave Marcus. Here's Gracie in the Foster's Oldsmobile. As they come back across the line. Bobby Allison comes up running about 6th on the racetrack at the moment. Dick Johnson and some of the cars trying to clear the heavy traffic. Unbelievable door handle to door handle stuff.
Well, that just shows the changing fortunes in this type of racing. Alan Grice really at the back of the field made a tactical error early in the race. Now he's up to 3rd position. It's the view looking through the rear of the Foster's Oldsmobile back towards Gary Collins.
Let's see who's lurking behind Collins. It's the man who was leading the race a while ago, and that, of course, is Bobby Allison. So Allison's been into the pits and has made up a lot of ground already. Herschel McGriff coming back through the pack.
I tell you who else is doing quite well as Ron Esau comes to the pits in car number 78. Dick Johnson's moving his way back through the field. He'd be up in the top 10 at the moment in the Ford Thunderbird. Dave Marcus there in car number 71. And this is the scrap for the lead. Neil Bonnet, car 75. Then followed by Dave Marcus, Alan Grice. Bobby Allison now to 4th, displacing Gary Collins.
Back behind Collins, you've got Dick Johnson on the inside.
Johnson's up into 7th place.
Going past J.C. Danielson, car number 82. Danielson in the Buick. And there's the man that most of the spectators here at Calder Thunderdome, most of the Australian ones are following. Alan Grice getting closer to the tail of Dave Marcus's car as they work their way back onto the tri-oval here. Bobby Allison is the next one back behind Grice.
Word from Alan Grice's car is that he has no brakes, so that's a curious situation to be in so early in the race. And another guy who's having his fair share of trouble at the moment is Ron Esau, making his 2nd trip to the pits. He was one of the front runners. We might get Chris Economaki to look at that shortly.
Let's recap the placings at the moment on the Castrol scoreboard. Neil Bonnet is your race leader. Dave Marcus runs in 2nd. Alan Grice of Australia is 3rd. Gary Collins 4th. And Bobby Allison 5th and on the move. Lap 69 of 280, the Goodyear 500 from Calder Park Thunderdome. Neil Bonnet, the Valvoline Pontiac, continues to lead the race. In second is Dave Marcus in the 71 car, but coming on very strong behind Marcus is Bobby Allison, who's been able to get past Alan Grice, who's been fading back through the field with brake problems, as we understand, and it's getting very tight up here at the lead as Bonnet tries to find a way past car number 11, goes down the outside of him.
Mike Alan Grice has slipped to 5th, and Dick Johnson in 6th place now, right on Grice's tail.
Well, in fact, that's just switched around as you speak, Gary.
Johnson's got through. Yep, he goes to 5th place now.
Yeah, the speed at which Bobby Allison picked Alan Grice off supported the information that we had that Grice has got brake problems with the Foster's Oldsmobile. Peter McKay is in the pits. Give us an update, Peter.
Thanks, Mike. Well, one man who's had a very tough racing initiation to Super Speedway is Gary Rush.
Yeah, Peter, we made us started overheating, and I think we're blowing ahead, Gus. A bit disappointed, really.
What's it like out there? How's the track holding up?
Good. The car was steering really nice. I enjoyed myself when I was there.
Okay, mate, bad luck. Back to the dirt speedway, eh?
No, well, I think we've got to learn a little bit about this type of racing.
Okay, back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Peter. With Gary Rush, an early casualty of the Goodyear 500, the Repco Gold Star engine entry. At the moment, you're watching Dave Marcus closing a little on Neil Bonnet, but closing all the time. Behind Marcus is, of course, Bobby Allison. They go down the back straight. Marcus has really been the star performer in the 71 car. And here's Allison setting up here. Can he get two of them for the price of one? Down into the tri-oval, here's Allison pulling out of the draft. Tries to slam down the inside of Dave Marcus and regain second. The sprint down into turn number 1, he couldn't pull it that time. Marcus, how close are they? This time he gets him on the exit to turn number 2. Marcus on the outside. They're coming into a wall of cars, including Terry Byers. Bobby Allison looking for second spot. Marcus runs in second. And just in front of him is race leader Neil Bonnet in the Raymock Pontiac.
Lap 73. And this is the scrap.
They are coming up on a wall of cars, including Jim Richards. Watch the passing now. There's Allison, caught out just a little wide that time. Finds the run down on the inside now as Neil Bonnet moves on to the back straight. Marcus thinking about a run down the outside. Will he switch back to the inside? Gets the free draft down the back straight into the next turn. Now there's Jim Richards in the second of the Foster's Oldsmobiles. Jim is about to have a lap put on him fairly and squarely by the leading trio. Look at Bonnet down the inside. There is not much room down there, but he's found a neat little groove down there as he heads into turn number 1. Marcus still trails through there. Allison really hasn't had the best of run here with the traffic. He's caught back behind some of those cars. So Bonnet breaks free of the draft. And going with him is Dave Marcus in car number 71. There's Allison, back caught in that pack, working away at the inside groove. He's got 2. He's been working on here for the last couple of laps. See if he can break free. John Laws, car number 6. One of the cars about to have a lap put on him. That's 2 laps down now for John Laws on the race leaders.
Harry Goulart is the other one, car 14.
Marcus in second. Allison in third, but trying to break clear of some of the lap traffic. As they come off the turn, tyres playing an important part in today's race. Let's go to Chris Economaki.
Hello. I'm down here in Herschel McGriff's pit. He made an unscheduled pit stop for this reason here, a cut tire. Now, something is out there on the racetrack that did this to McGriff's tire, car number 98. He had to come in for an emergency pit stop, and of course he took on fuel and got back out. One of the trials and tribulations of super speedway stock car racing. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. Tyres.
You know, the thing that really shows out here, Mike, is just bucket loads of experience. Look at the way that Bonnet and Dave Marcus deal with the traffic. Marcus has been a professional on the Winston Cup Series for 20 years. Started in 1968, And remember, these guys run 30 of the 52 weekends a year, so can you imagine how much racing that is? They live in these things.
Well, they certainly do a 500 or a 400-mile race every weekend.
Not to mention the practice lead up to it, which is a 3 or 4 day affair.
And then, of course, they have the supporting division called their Grand National Division, which is 6-cylinder cars, which run only probably 3 miles an hour slower than these. And they also have a supporting 300-mile race or a 200-mile race.
And it's that ability to thread their way through traffic that sorts these guys out, because we now have Bonnet heading into turn 1 from Marcus, Allison behind, and already, remembering just a few laps ago, those 3 guys were amongst about 10 cars. They've dumped them by a quarter of a lap, including the reigning Australian Touring Car champion, Jim Richards.
Dickie Johnson, of course, carries one of our race cams today in the number 17 car.
In 5th position.
He's done a great job, keeping in mind that Dick put this car on the wall on Friday.
He was on the pace on Thursday, though, wasn't he? Well and truly. So he's got it in there, and that car qualified in last year's Daytona 500 at a speed of 212 miles an hour, backed by Ross Palmer's company in the United States, Redcoat. That's Jim Richards' car number 1. Oh, and we've got another car really, and in fact we've got 3, 4, 5 wrecks up on turn number 3. And it's a real schmozzle, including Dick Johnson, whose car is on fire. Alan Grice piles to the middle of the pack, ridden his car off as well. We've got 3, 4, 5 cars there. In fact, 6.
Yep, 6 cars, including Grice, including Johnson. It's hard at this moment
Johnson's
to distinguish
car
the
is
others.
a complete wreck. So is Alan Grice. Goodness me, I didn't pick the car that set that off. I just looked up, caught it from the corner of my eye.
There's Dick Johnson climbing out of his car.
That's 2 in a week.
Well, he'd almost come to a dead stop in the centre of the track when Grice speared through the turn and slammed straight into the side of him. How he didn't hit one of those other cars before he hit Johnson, I'll never know.
I wonder whether we have anything on race cam of that incident. It'll be pretty spectacular. Bill Venturini having his second prang. Let's have a look at our Goodyear replay of just exactly what happened. Turn number 3 we're looking at is at David Sousby. Oh no, this has happened further up the track.
Bill Venturini's in there somewhere.
The 14 car that triggered all of that off. Harry Gillard.
Lap number 81 of 280. Alan Grice goes in at about 150 mile an hour, slams into Dick Johnson. Still can't pick up all the players in this. 6 cars in total.
Well, there's a major wreck up there. Alan Grice's car, the Foster's Oldsmobile.
Well, is Grice okay? Dick Johnson helping Alan Grice out of the cockpit. The yellow flag comes out, the field under caution. Terry Byers involved in the Tui's Chev. He's the one up high on the fence. I have a feeling that Terry was involved from the early stages. Let's take a look at our Goodyear replay on Foster's race cam.
Well, this is how it all happened.
Dick Johnson heading into the back straight now for a rush down towards turn 3. We'll get some idea of the view. Turns the car in. The incident has already happened at this stage. Look at this, straight into car number 96. Goodness me, that is a very heavy crash.
In 96.
So Brad Knopfsinger involved also. The rest of the field come around as most of the leaders now go into the pits. The 12 car of Bobby Allison, 19 is in. Just about all the leaders, only Dave Marcus will stay out there without coming in. He'll assume the role of race leader. There's the rest of the field coming in very quickly for pit stops after that very spectacular incident involving 2 of the Australian runners in the field, Alan Grice and Dick Johnson. That's Harry Gallart's car.
Well, I think he was the one that set it off. That was the car that I first saw. I couldn't quite pick the colour of it.
Terry Byers, of course, involved there too. So 3 Australians out of the 6 involved. The other cars, Harry Gillard in 14, 96 Brad Knopfsinger, and I'm pretty sure that car 71 was the other vehicle, not 71, sorry. 25, Bill Venturini, but we'll double check that.
Well, Bill having his second prank for the weekend. That's Brad Knopfsinger's car. Oh, that is severe damage. Car number 81. David Sousby.
81 it is, Sousby. Okay, it wasn't Venturini then.
Placings on the Castrol scoreboard. Dave Marcus, the leader in car 71 from Bobby Allison, car 12. Then Ron Esau, 78. Sumner McKnight up to 4th place now in car number 83. And rounding out the top 5, car 19, Chad Little. From 6, Terry Petrus, 15. Then we've got Glenn Sturr, car number 18. Kyle Petty lurking in the back of the pack, 21. And JC Danielson, car number 82 in 9th. And rounding out the top 10, Bob Howard, 89. Oops.
Yeah, we always thought they were only 5. Back at Calder Park Thunderdome, Alan Grice being taken to the infield hospital, neck in a brace, just a cautionary measure, of course, after taking a pretty solid wallop coming through the field and then separating Dick Johnson's car and another vehicle in that rather spectacular crack-up that has brought us back under yellow flag laps in the running of the Goodyear 500. Let's have a look at the replay once again for you, actually what happened. There's Dick Johnson going in. He had nowhere to move. Byers is already in against the wall. Galati has already triggered that off. Now watch Dick Johnson, 17. He gets around sideways. Galati comes down the bank. And Alan Grice arrives sideways trying to miss. And he goes in and catches John Laws in car number 6 on the way through as well. 25, another car involved in that accident. Here's another angle for you. From a camera following the number 17 car. It hooks the 96 car. Goes up, touches Byers. Flash fire. And once again, oh, how quick did Grice arrive in that accident.
Of course, he had no brakes. We made mention of that. He mentioned earlier to our race cam people that he had a problem. That's John Law's car number 6.
So there, in fact, were 8 cars involved in that. Bill Venturini was one of them, along with Ken Laws. Let's go down to Chris Economaki.
Well, down in David Sotheby's pit, there's a lot of souvenirs for sale. Souvenirs of the Calder Thunderdome. Parts that have been taken off of his car as a result of that crash. And they're not through taking weight off this car. It'll be in again while they do some more work. Sotheby's a persistent performer. His dad before him was one of the greats on the sand at Daytona Beach. They chiseled off so much of the sheet metal. The hood is over there, and he's going to come back in to get some more taken off. He's determined to finish this Goodyear 500 at the Calder Thunderdome. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. There's the 28 car coming in. But let's have a look at a race cam replay. Again, we have this covered from just about every angle today for you. Dick Johnson, of course. And you'll see as he moves onto the back straight, Dick was making great progress. Head down the back straight, coming up now into turn number 3, and the touch has already started. There's one sideways, and watch how quickly it appears as Dick hits it. Race cam spins around. Dick has already stopped. And that was before he received the clout from Alan Grice.
Well, my casualty count so far is 9 cars, 26 Terry Byers, 17 Dick Johnson, 3 Alan Grice, 81 David Sousby, 28 Gary Collins. We saw that car being towed. Car number 6 there on screen, John Laws. 25 Bill Venturini, who had a prang yesterday. And car number 96, Brad Knopfsinger. And rounding out the 9 unfortunate drivers, and the guy that I believe set it off because I caught it out of my eye in turn 3. It's car 14, Harry Galati, who got, or Galati I should say, got very out of shape, right up high, touched the wall, then cannoned back into a bunch of cars.
There's the number 6 John Laws car. John, of course, is a short track sedan driver on the dirt circuits, decided to give that away for a while. There's Dick Johnson's car, co-sponsored by the Welded Tube Company of America, and it's going to need plenty of more parts from the Welded Tube Company to get the Dick Johnson car back on the racetrack again.
Well, they put a back on the car after Thursday's incident. They'll be putting a front on the car after Sunday's incident. I think Dick will be a little disgruntled, to say the least, at his first outing with NASCAR stock car racing.
But with two
it really
new
was.
halves.
It is disappointing to see so many of the good Australian runners taken out in this one. There's one very strong one still left, and that's Tasmanian Robin Best in the number 88 car. However, 81 is back on the racetrack. 25 comes off the racetrack now. It's going back behind the pit wall.
That's exactly the same damage. In fact, it's a little...
That's Bill Venturini.
Yeah, a little less severe as it was yesterday.
Let's go down to Peter McKay, who I believe is with Dick Johnson.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Well, the third wreck in, well, the second wreck in 3 days for you, Dick. You don't want this to be habit forming.
I think that's just the way this sort of motor racing is, Peter. It's pretty cut and thrust. I don't mind that at all. It's just, it annoys me when you become part of somebody else's accident, you know, when you've got absolutely no control over it whatsoever. I picked what I thought was a hole, but before I knew it, somebody had filled it, and then somebody hit me, and then somebody else hit me, and it just kept going and going.
The car doesn't look too flash at all, Dick. Is it a write-off?
One would never know. These things are pretty tough. It's pretty bent in the front, but I think it'd be able to straighten it out because you just cut bits off and put bits in and so on. And I think yeah, we'll have it up and running. We've got another car anyway, and that's why you need two, I think.
Well, earlier this week you had to go and see a well-known chiropractor. Are you going back tonight?
I don't know, mate. I think I felt worse. I've got some dog's disease, I think.
Okay, back to you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And there, of course, is the 03 car being pulled into the pit area. That's the situation from Calder Thunderdome. There's still a lot more to come in the Goodyear 500. Welcome back to Calder Park Thunderdome. Boy, have we seen some wrecks here today. We're working the Goodyear 500 on the Australian television network. Ron Esau is the man who takes over the lead now from Jim Richards. And while the field still forms up, we're under yellow at the moment, still a couple of laps before we go back to racing. Let's go to the pits, Chris Economaki.
I'm here with Gary Collins from Northern California, who was in the middle of that accident. Gary, what started it?
Well, I don't know. We were trying to work our way through lap traffic, and all of a sudden the whole world just closed in on everybody, and they started to come to the bottom. So I moved to the top of the racetrack, and they just came back up in front of me. We just had nowhere to go. I don't know. I think it was some slower cars up front that we were trying to make our way through. But I tell you, that Wax Shop Coors Light Oldsmobile was hauling. It was running excellent today, and I'm really disappointed for our sponsors and stuff, but we'll be back.
How hard was the hit?
The hit was pretty hard. When they came out in front of us, I hit the guy in front of me, and then I got collected in the rear pretty hard.
Now, there's some talk about some of the drivers are not behaving out there. They're not staying over. The move-over flag is not being obeyed. Do you find that to be the case?
Well, we got in a clutter of about 6 lap cars, and it was a pretty hectic run trying to get through them. Now, I don't know about that, but it was pretty tough getting through the lap traffic.
Okay, better luck next time, Gary. Gary Collins out of the race. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Christopher. Bad luck for Gary Collins. Got time, though, to go and drop down a pint or two of Coors Light, I guess, and think about what could have been.
A whole lot of new names up at the head of the pack now, Michael.
It certainly is. Ron Esau leads. Esau, I should say, car number 78 from car 21, Kyle Petty. Ruben Garcia, car 32, moves up into third place. In fourth, car number 18 is Glenn Sturr. There's Grice's car with all the corners knocked off. Behind the top 4 or top 3 that I've just gone through, we've got car number 83, Sumner McKnight.
There's the race. Yeah, the race cam still working in the vehicle of Alan Grice, just doing that 360 pan. Just look at the damage out the back. It's smashed the screen, the rear. You can see the roll cage has done its job. 3,500 pounds of race car.
Well,
that's
all
the
the
reason.
internal bracing seems to have done a brilliant job. It's only
they are driver protectors, the cages in these Winston Cup cars. While we're still under the yellow flag, in case you've just joined our telecast, this is what triggered it off. Number of cars up the head of the field. Harry Gallarta's in there. There's Dick Johnson, the last red car. You can see the 17 car hooking up. He gets around sideways with Gallarta, and then Alan Grice, we believe without brakes, is about to arrive. And there he is. Wham! Straight into the side of Dick Johnson. That has taken their 2 cars out. Ken Laws has also gone out. And Terry Byers in the Tui's entry is also out. Bad luck, they were running strongly. Let's go back down to the pits with Chris.
Well, Terry Byers, car 26, is out of it. As you can see, his car is damaged. But this driver was the most practiced of all the Australians. He put 500 laps on this track, getting ready for this race today, and he's out of it early. He's quite distressed. He's up the other line, but fortunately, physically, he's okay. We can't say that for his car. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Chris Economaki. Well, this is the way they stack up in the top 10 at the moment. Caution flag still out. 78, Ron Esau is in the lead from 21, Kyle Petty, then 32, Ruben Garcia. 18, Glenn Sturr in 4th place, followed by 83, Sumner McKnight. Then 98, Herschel McGriff. Car 19, Chad Little. Then 75, Neil Bonnet. 12, Bobby Allison. And car 89, Bob Howard, rounds out the 10 as they stand on the track at the present time. Car 96 being towed off to the infield. Another victim of that huge pile-up, Brad Knopfsinger's car. Pace car still out, the lights still on. Cars forming up, waiting for the green to go again.
Looks like Kyle Petty, is it?
No, Dave Marcus coming to the
in
pits.
fact, going in for a very quick pit stop in the 71 car. And Chris is right on the spot.
Oh, well, you can just see how hard a hit Alan Grice took. The back of his car in the race starter was about out to here. It's been shortened up by 3 to 4 feet. And this is all heavy racing construction with chrome moly tubing. Fortunately, the fuel cell inside here maintained its structure. This fuel cell here bent and battered, but the rubber sack inside did not burst. Had it burst, it most certainly would have been a dangerous fire. You can see the tubing here, how it's bent. Grice really took a hit, and we certainly hope he's okay in the hospital. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. And the information we have, Neil, is that Alan Grice is pretty sore, but apart from that and severe bruising, he is quite okay and quite coherent.
yes, they're taking him away for observation. Our wishes are with Gricey, but the word is that he is A-OK, but he'll be sore for a little while to come. Lap 93 of 280. They're still under the caution flag at the moment.
That's 12 laps under the caution flag this time.
It's not too bad because the crew here at Calder Thunderdome have done a great job of clearing up. They had a lot of wrecks up there between turn 3 and 4. They've managed to pull them all back into the pits. A section of the huge crowd that has turned out today at Calder Thunderdome, biggest crowd I would think in the history of Calder Park Complex here in Melbourne for the first ever NASCAR event, proudly sponsored by Goodyear, and of course being seen across Australia on the Australian television network exclusively, throughout the United States through ESPN, and to viewers throughout Europe.
You know, Mike, we're only 1/3 or near enough to 1/3 race distance. We started with 32 cars. We've currently got 18.
Some of those look pretty bent.
Wilson.
Well, Robin Best, car number 88, tails the field. He will start last for the restart. But I don't think that'll matter too much, considering how some of the cars that were running probably 15th and 16th have inherited the lead on pit stops. And Robin is probably the best chance now for or certainly the only chance now for a top 3 finish for an Australian driver. He started on the 2nd row, 4th fast qualifier. Ron Esau will pace them away. The number 1 car, Jim Richards, we believe is a lap down. It should move to the inside. In fact, the Ron Esau car, amazing story about that. The car was driven or was owned by Jim Robinson, a well-known driver in NASCAR Winston Cup racing. But only 3 weeks ago, Robinson, who was already committed to coming to Australia, was involved in a very serious wreck at Phoenix International Raceway, and in fact is on a life support system in the United States, in Phoenix Hospital. However, the crew were committed to coming to Australia. They hired Ron Esau to fly to Australia. Ron flew out, was only too happy to do it, has donated all prize monies to the Jim Robinson Accident Fund. And of course, Eurovox car radios came good with sponsorship for the race. Unical 76, the fuel suppliers, have provided all the fuel for the car, and Goodyear came good with all the tyres, and that was just tremendous. So they're doing it for the Jim Robinson Fund, and the car is now leading the race.
Lights are off on the pace car, lapped cars moving to the infield for the restart, so they've got about 3 parts of a lap before they come back to get the green once more and get back to the serious action here in the Goodyear 500. First NASCAR stock car race in Australia. And boy, if the 40,000 plus crowd that came in here today paid their money to see some action, they've had their money's worth already.
Well, here's Ron Esau moving back to the inside edge of the racetrack, so Marcus will move to the outside. That should put Marcus back to the lead spot. Double check that for you.
Marcus is in the back of the field at the moment in car number 71. Kyle Petty is up there with Ron Esau. Yeah, well, these guys are nose to tail, aren't they? Car number 32 in there as well. It's Ruben Garcia.
Well, the pace car, in fact, will pull to the pit area and will get them down for the green. And as they come across the line now, going through to take over the lead as the race recommences, Kyle Petty was on the outside. 32 tries to find a run down here on the inside, and Jimmy Richards is in amongst them. Petty didn't get the best of starts as they swing through onto the back straight. The Kroger car now comes down the back straight with Kyle Petty at the wheel. Sweeping by him there, going down the outside is the veteran Herschel McGriff in car number 98.
Well, you'd think that was a case of severe lack of horsepower for Kyle Petty. Car being gobbled up down the back straight. So it's Ron Esau who leads. Ruben Garcia in second place. Car number 98 is Herschel McGriff. He's having a go on the inside. And dropping back into fourth place is Kyle Petty in car number 21. Winner of last year's Coca-Cola 600. Charlotte Super Speedway, North Carolina. Glenn Stura is behind him. Car number 19 is next, Chad Little. Jimmy Richards dropping back through the pack again. There's been some problems with that car this weekend. Look at Petty on the inside, really getting very close to the back of car number 32, Ruben Garcia.
Sideways on the front straight.
Two of them.
That's going to bring the yellow out just for a moment. He caught it.
JC Danielson. Oh, and Robin Best goes around trying to avoid him. And again, experience showing out because Dave Marcus was tangled up in that in car 71 and just whistled down the inside and kept his nose clean. The yellow flag has not come out.
Alan Grice, by the way, has been taken to Royal Melbourne Hospital for observation, but shock and bruises, nothing more serious.
14 lead changes up to lap 97.
Robin Best got the worst of that because he went through the infield trying to avoid the other car that had spun, the 82 car, JC Danielson. And the yellow flag didn't come out, so Best is trying to limp back to the pit area now and say for a fresh set of tyres. That was good thinking. There's a replay exactly what happened coming down for the start. There's Danielson goes around sideways in car number 82. And he starts to head back out towards the racetrack. While this was happening, it was Robin Best, you can see there, spun to avoid contact. But he's gone back into the pit area, Robin Best, in the number 88 car. Little stiff, Robin Best, this afternoon. He's been doing a good job. Pick them up as they go into turn number 3. Ron Esau is the race leader. Herschel McGriff coming up into second spot. But on the charge back behind them, Neil Bonnet. He is just coming through the pack like you couldn't believe. And right behind him, Bobby Allison. So the Alabama gang of Bonnet and Allison coming back through the field. There's Bonnet, 75, the Valvoline Pontiac, and working the high side now. Onto the back straight is Bobby Allison. There's Herschel McGriff, car number 98. Runs in second spot. The most experienced driver in today's field is in fact the man running second at the moment, Herschel McGriff. 60 years of age, car number 98. Neil Bonnet now merges into third. Bobby Allison will take over fourth. There you can see them making those moves as I speak. There's Allison in the number 12 car, now up to fourth.
There's Herschel McGriff, car number 98. First race, Portland, Oregon, September 1945.
Still enjoys his racing.
Competed in the world's first super speedway race, the Southern 500 at Darlington in 1950. And he's in Australia's maiden NASCAR stock car race. What a career of motorsport. Robin Best rejoins the field. Let's go down to pit lane and talk with Peter McKay.
Thanks, Neil Crompton. We have an update on the medical condition of Alan Grice. It appears he has a broken collarbone, suspected broken ribs, and of course he's very sore. He's off to hospital by chopper, but of course that probably throws some doubt into his European campaign later this year.
News for Alan Grice, and if he does have fractures, ribs or shoulders, that will delay his European Touring Car Championship assault. That won't be good news for Howard Marsden, who'll be waiting on the other side of the world, wondering how his works driver's coming along in his first or his second NASCAR Super Speedway race.
We have a great race still going on with Ron Esau, Herschel McGriff, and closing them all the time, Neil Bonnet and Bobby Allison back through the tri-oval, the start-finishing line. And Allison, in fact, trying to get by Neil Bonnet if he can, just before they start to pick up the two up in front, and they're hauling them in at quite a rapid rate. I think you can see a lead change coming up here very, very quickly. How close, in fact. Bonnet and Bobby Allison. There's one. There's second. Herschel McGriff, 98. And right behind them, there you can see Neil Bonnet in the Raymond Valvoline Pontiac, sitting hard on his bumper. Bobby Allison in the number 12 car, coming in for the completion of yet another lap. Esau now finds the 98 car of Herschel McGriff closing all the time on him, and they're towing up just for a free pass, Neil Bonnet.
Bonnet's really recovering from a pretty dreadful season last year, as you know, Mike, in the Winston Cup Series, when at the Oakwood Homes 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway in October, he had a very bad accident, was hospitalised for a couple of weeks with a broken thigh, but he's serving it up to Herschel McGriff at the moment. He's got Bobby Allison on his tail, and they're all chasing Ron Esau, but Bonnet the man to watch here as they rush down towards turn 1, has the inside line. McGriff just closes the gap, and doesn't Allison love that high line?
He certainly does. He's been working that all day here at Calder Thunderdome. Down the back straight, Bonnet will probably swing to the inside of Herschel McGriff. McGriff is sitting in the draft now of Ron Esau. We have a 4-car freight train going here, coming off turn number 4. Here's Bonnet now starting to apply the pressure as he comes down into the tri-oval, and will try and pitch Herschel McGriff on the inside, does so. McGriff will try and outrace him down to the bottom corner, but Allison is already through as well. He now advances to third spot in the field. And just up in front of them is Ron Esau as they make their way past a slower car coming onto the back straight. Ron Esau, the Jim Robinson entry, the Eurovox car radio car, up into the left-hander, and here is Neil Bonnet, the man applying plenty of pressure. Allison thinking about a run right around the outside. He's going to try and pull it. They're coming down into the tri-oval, and Bobby Allison trying to go down the outside. Bonnet attacks the inside. They're side by side as Bonnet looks for the inside pass, but Bobby Allison down the outside, getting plenty of pressure. Can he pull it here on the outside? They work their way out of turn number 2, coming onto the back straight. It all depends now on race leader Ron Esau, where he sits on the racetrack.
You know, Allison's getting amazing grip out of that car at the moment. He now edges up into second place. He's on the attack. Esau on the inside line. We might just have a lead change here. Bonnet coming off a little worse for wear in this dice. Down towards the front straight. And the new leader is Bobby Allison from Ron Esau, but Esau will have the inside line as they get down to turn 1 once again. But Allison closes the gap, and he is throwing that car around the course at the moment.
He's the first driver who's been working the outside groove here all afternoon and making a payoff for him. Bonnet decides to have a piece of the action. He goes by Esau on the outside, and all that time, you'll notice that Herschel McGriff was thinking about it. He hasn't been able to do it just as yet, but Allison will lead them down across the start-finishing line. From Neil Bonnet, Ron Esau, then of course Herschel McGriff in the 98 car. JC Danielson is the next one back. Then the Coors car, number 19. Down on the inside is Chad Little. Back straight, these two Winston Cup professionals go at it. Bobby Allison in the 12 car, Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Pontiac. Here comes the scrap again, first and second, and Herschel McGriff getting very close now to Ron Esau in the number 98 car. They're just sitting back behind these two. Herschel McGriff, of course, 61 years of age, drives the Pontiac. He's from Oregon. 151 career starts, races out on the West Coast, 34 major wins, 86 won the Winston West Championship, career earnings $311,647. One of our Nissan profile drivers in today's Goodyear 500 from Calder Park. And how tight is that as McGriff now comes down on the inside of Ron Esau through the tri-oval. There's a lap car down on the inside, so he'll have to try and pitch him on the inside if he can. No, he can't. Esau finds the way around the outside. I think that's James Davis at number 11. He's been the slowest car. Double check that one for you as they come down the back straight. And that, of course, is Jerry Churchill, I'm sorry. Jerry Churchill is down a couple of laps now on the leaders. Robin Best out and circulating yet again. Building up to speed. Might drop another lap here to the leaders who come down through the tri-oval with Allison still leading from Neil Bonnet, Ron Esau, and of course Herschel McGriff looking for fourth. Great working of the outside groove on this racetrack to the bottom corner. Let's check them out on the Castrol scoreboard. Bobby Allison is your race leader. Second spot held by Neil Bonnet. Third is Ron Esau. Fourth, Kyle Petty. And fifth, Ruben Garcia. Lap 121 of 280 laps, the Goodyear 500 from Calder Park Thunderdome. We're riding with Neil Bonnet in the Raymock Valvoline Pontiac V8, and he's tailing at the moment Bobby Allison in the number 12 Buick as they head down the back straight.
Allison, 50 years of age. He was the 83 Winston Cup champion. He's had 43 pole positions in his career, 83 major wins, earned $6.4 million, and three-time winner of the Daytona 500. It's not a bad record, is it, Bo?
Certainly not.
Leads the event at the moment from Neil Bonnet in car 75, Chad Little in third place, car 19, Kyle Petty in fourth, car 21, Ruben Garcia, car 32, is in fifth place, and Glenn Stewart, car 18, is in sixth. That's the order at the moment.
Chad Little, another racer from the west coast of the United States, from Spokane in Washington, doing a good job to get up to third place among the survivors in this race, with still a long way to go. Let's head over to the pits. That's a long way from here as well. And Peter McKay.
I think Peter was having some problem there with his communication. We'll go back to him in the tech. They work down the back straight. Allison, Bonnet. I tell you what, Allison might get through to the lead, but Bonnet just hangs in his draft all the time. And this, in fact, could go right down to the last lap. I think 20 from home we're going to see a charge on.
I'd say there's every certainty of it.
$250,000 in prize money up for grabs, and these are two hard-nosed professionals.
Yeah, $42,000 US or 59,030 Australian dollars for first place, 21,000 US for second, 17,850 for third. It's worth fighting for.
It certainly is. These two guys are starting to clear out a bit from the pack now, coming off the fourth corner, down through this tri-oval portion of the racetrack. It's how close they are. He will not allow Allison to get away. Sit in the draft as they head to the back straight, but Allison all the time has been using just one line higher than Neil Bonnet. Bonnet can close up. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Bonnet even had just a touch more horsepower. It just depends on how the car is set. Let's try Peter McKay again in the pits.
Thanks, mate. Well, the question is, when is a dead race car really dead? 1 hour ago, Gary Rush pulled behind the pits here with a blown head gasket, but that's not the end of the story. Gary, what are the guys up to?
Well, Peter, we think it's a blown head gasket. If that's the only problem we have, we can plug another head gasket on in about 40 minutes, and we should be able to go out and do the last 100 laps, if that's all it is.
And win some prize money.
Well, there's good money on the first Aussie home, and, you know, I don't wish any problems on any of the other Aussie guys out there, but, you know, that last accident out there just took 6 cars out, you know, so that's racing, you know.
And how long will it take before the car's out there?
About 40 minutes.
Okay, mate, best of luck. Mike.
Well, Gary Rush not out of it yet. The Repco Gold Star entry, I'll tell you, is also not left out of it. That's Neil Bonnet in 75, getting closer all the time again to Bobby Allison. They drop to the low groove, coming off turn number 4, heading back down the start, finishing straight. Coming up on a slower car, I think that in fact is Michael Waltrip in car number 30, still circulating. Hasn't had the best of races. Jimmy Richards under the green has been in and out of the pits, and a very quick stop for Jimmy Richards. Allison works the high line, and here's Neil Bonnet. Down on the inside again, there's Waltrip working the draft, going down the back straight. Waltrip in the 30 car, and Bonnet eases by him. Just watch the line here of Bonnet, who really likes to cling low as they come out of here, down through this, what we call the tri-over, little kick to the left halfway down the straight. They go down to the first turn again. Just notice how much Allison's car is in fact moving around now.
Yes, I noticed that a couple of laps ago. But all the time Bobby has been working the high line on the track. Rushes up to the turns very high, very deep, brakes very late. Doesn't appear to be too worried about the unsettling effects of the track in some places. He said to me yesterday that in turns 1 and 3, when you're on the high line, you've got to be very careful because there's a very, very slight rise in the track. You can't detect it with the eye when you're standing there, but you can sure feel it at 170 miles an hour. The car gets just a little loose, as they say. We prefer to call it oversteer in this country. Neil Bonnet was the leader at lap 70 and has already picked up $5,000 US as the True Performer Award.
It's not bad.
Plenty of money being divvied up, but I'm just trying to work out some of the money that's been going to the other guys in the event.
71, Dave Marcus coming back through the field. up into about 5th spot at the moment.
Yeah, Marcus, of course, lost considerable ground when J.C. Danielson spun out in front of him coming out of turn 4 on lap 93, but he's made it up and is now back into 5th spot. We've had 16 lead changes in the race up to 125 laps, and there are 18 cars still left in the race.
Notice that Neil Bonnet was left foot braking that time. Great shots from Seven's race cam. So Bonnet sets the pace from Bobby Allison.
These cars have run like clockwork since they opened them up in anger here last Wednesday. Let's check out the scoreboard at the moment. Bobby Allison has just been passed by Neil Bonnet, 3rd spot. Dave Marcus coming back through the field, Chad Little and Kyle Petty. What is it? Lap 138 of 280 in the Goodyear 500, coming to you from Calder Park Thunderdome, Melbourne, Australia. Race leader, still car number 12, Bobby Allison from Neil Bonnet. Dave Marcus still runs in 3rd. And here is the scrap as it continues. These two drivers hard at it. Car number 1, Jimmy Richards, one of the highest placed Australians in the field now. He was challenging Robin Best, but that Best has been in and out of the pits. And of course, Jimmy Richards is no stranger to Australian television viewers. He is, of course, the Australian touring car champion. Let's take time out, courtesy of Nissa, to take a look at his career.
Jim Richards is Australian motorsport's Mr. Versatile. For just on 10 years, he's been an outstanding road racing achiever. At 40, he's getting better and better. And for this quiet man of racing, success has flowed from our crown jewel events, the James Hardy 1000 and the Australian Touring Car Championship. Jim hit the jackpot back in 1978 when he first teamed with Peter Brock. The combination blended beautifully, and driving the wild GM V8 Tiranas, the duo reaped a hat-trick at Mount Panorama, Bathurst. Always the showman, and despite the odd misadventure, Jim's best solo performances have come from his time with the JPS BMW team. Twice in the last 3 years, Richards has tasted victory in the Touring Car Series, once in the 635 and more recently in the Neat M3. Today is Jim's first stock car showdown, but from day one he was an enthusiastic supporter of the radical Bob Jane concept. Jim Richards, a fine driver from the Nissan collection of champions.
Jimmy Richards there with one of our Nissan personality profiles on the Goodyear 500. He continues in the one car, managed to puff the smoke out of it a lap or so back. But he, at this stage, would be, Neil, I guess, the highest placed Australian in the field, clear of Robin Best.
Yep. Mick Webb, his crew chief, noticed that they were preparing some tyres for that car. Mick, of course, well known to us through his association with Alan Moffat in previous years. Jim joining the Oval BMW team this year for his ongoing Touring Car Championship assault. The car running very low in the field at the moment. He just hasn't been able to quite crack the pace for some reason. He was lapping in about mid-28s on Wednesday and Thursday, and he's done some very quick times out here in private practice. But for some reason, the times are elusive at the end of the week that counts.
There's Jimmy Richards swinging past the tri-oval. Shot there from the pits as the Foster's Lager Oldsmobile heads into turn number 1. Of course, he goes out after the defence of the Australian Touring Car Championship here at the same circuit next week.
That was Bobby Allison just putting a lap on Sumner McKnight, who figures in the top 10, and coming up onto the back of Bob Howard in the Pennzoil entry, former construction company owner. Let's take a look at our Goodyear replay. There's been no shortage of accidents and incidents around the Calder Park Thunderdome today. Who have we got here? It looks like it might in fact be Best.
Could have been Robin Best coming off, but rejoined the race. No yellow flag lap required. Heading down into the pits at the moment is Ron Esau in the Jim Robinson entry, the Eurovox Radios car. Our race leader, of course, is Bobby Allison, just goes past the start-finishing line, heading down into turn number 1. Still clear of Neil Bonnet. In car number 75, the Valvoline Raymock Pontiac V8.
Dave Marcus in 3rd place. Carl Petty's moved up a slot in car 21 into 4th place now, followed by Chad Little in car 19, then Ruben Garcia and Sumner McKnight. That's after 146 laps out of 280.
Look like Robin Best having a lap put on him now by our 2 leaders. Bobby Allison in the 12 car and Neil Bonnet in the 75 car. Best still plugs away though. He's had a couple of incidents today.
Ron Esau just came out of the pits. We saw a quick glimpse of him there. So this is quite interesting. We've got Howard in the yellow car, Bobby Allison going through in the middle, splitting the bunch. And no doubt Neil Bonnet will want to go with him. Howard in the yellow Pennzoil entry as a retired construction company owner. Had a good chat to him yesterday, thoroughly enjoying his time in Australia, intends to spend 2 or 3 weeks here to really soak up the sights in the coming weeks, and said that he can't believe how cooperative his Australian crew have been, because with the way that this whole exercise has been coordinated, the logistics of it all, the guys are allowed to use 3 of their own American crew members, but also must use 3 Australians. And he said to me that the 3 Australians have blended into the team beautifully and they're having a fantastic time. Kyle Petty, car number 21, incidentally, has just gone into the pit area. He was running in the top 5.
Yes, and I would imagine because we've been under green for quite a spell now, it mightn't be too long before we see pit stops under the green, unless there is another caution by both Bobby Allison and Neil Bonnet.
Well,
it'll all even itself up shortly. But he's in there, the 21 car. Kyle Petty underway. Didn't have a good start to the week, but things coming together for him. Was up in the top 4 there only a short spell ago, but he's rejoining the race, the Goodyear 500 from Calder. Kyle Petty out and running.
Being rounded up by the leaders, so he's dropped at least 1 lap, having to pit on the green.
He's back to 8th spot now, Kyle Petty.
But all that, of course, will change when Neil Bonnet and Bobby Allison head to the pits, and so too Dave Marcus in the 71 car, who's now up in third.
Some pretty frantic pit signals going out to Allison at the moment, I noticed. Lap 150 of 280. His crew down on the fence were vigorous in the way that they were trying to get a message across, so we'll see what transpires there. Allison with about 4 car lengths lead from Bonnet. Bob Howard down a lap right behind in the yellow Pennzoil entry, and there is car number 21, Kyle Petty. Was 5th, now down to 8th. Still really not up to speed. Incidentally, Howard has just come to the pits in the Pennzoil entry, so Petty doesn't seem to be getting back on the money here at all. There's something wrong with that car. He's about to be attacked by a bunch of cars. This is the son of the legendary Richard Petty, who was in Australia within the last 12 months doing some vital tyre testing for Goodyear, who've mounted a massive campaign to bring tyres and equipment out here.
You're right, there were some frantic pit signals going out there a while ago to Bobby Allison's crew, so they might be trying to judge his race.
That's Herschel McGriff, car number 98. Jim Richards, car 1. Kyle Petty's just coming up to speed now, Gary, by the look of it. For some reason, that car's just not pulling out of the turns. He seemed to have some difficulty coming out of the pit lane earlier.
Well, he must have had a problem to go in under the green flag, and as you said, that cost him a lap, dropped him back from 4th position on the track, 5th position to 8th.
Well, I think it'd be worse than that now. There's everybody rounding him up. Now, once again, there's...
yes, and here comes Allison into the pit area. Streaming down, car number 12.
So Neil Bonnet will assume the lead now.
Now, don't be surprised if Neil Bonnet doesn't, in fact, wind up in the pits in the next lap or so. There's Bobby Allison in for a very quick stop. Right side tyres going on the car. Neil Bonnet goes back into the lead. Very quick pit stop this. Churn of fuel. Bobby Allison
looks pretty relaxed.
To notice, doesn't drive with gloves on. Never did. Notice that at Daytona a couple of weeks ago as well. His car has been running superbly. Oops, he stalls it. But they'll fire him off and he gets going again.
Notice how hard the cars are to get mobile because they're geared so highly for this competition. Ruben Garcia comes to the pits. Ruben, gas only. That was the frantic pit signal that I saw before, the Van Nuys team. We spoke with Dave Nelson earlier in our telecast. He's the crew chief. And Ruben was pretty confident that he was going to put in a good, consistent performance, and he's right on the money for that at the moment.
Well,
certainly is.
In 4th place on the racetrack now.
Jerry Churchill car comes into the pits, the 11 car.
For your 11th pit stop.
This, in fact, is the longest spell we've had in the race without a yellow flag, so I wouldn't imagine it'll be too long before Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline car. Here he is, our race leader.
They can't get Garcia's car mobile. They're still pushing it down pit lane.
Well, we had a yellow flag briefly on lap 93 and haven't had one since.
That's been quite a break now. Garcia, they've pushed it almost half the length of the pits at the moment. As Bonnet heads down the back straight.
Well, that's a tragedy. He was running so well. He's going to lose at least a lap in this exercise. He's just lost a lap, in fact, as we watch Neil Bonnet.
Car will not fire for Ruben Garcia. Now he's away and about to rejoin the race, but at least, well, 2 laps down.
That was very costly indeed for Garcia. It's running smoothly at the moment for Neil Bonnet, the 75 Rainrock Valvoline Pontiac, coming off the second turn down the back straight. Let's have a look at them on the Castrol scoreboard. Race leader Neil Bonnet, second is Dave Marcus. Chad Little is third. Ruben Garcia, well, temporarily fourth there before going to that. And Summer McKnight rounds off the top 5. 165 of 280 laps in the Goodyear 500 from Calder Park Thunderdome. Race leader is still Neil Bonnet in the 75 car, and he leads from Dave Marcus in 71, Chad Little in 19, Bobby Allison back to 4th spot after that pit stop in car number 12, and we believe it won't be long before Neil Bonnet is in for his pit stop. Let's have a look at the casualty count today. Alan Grice, of course, the Foster's Oldsmobile going out in the wreck. Bill Venturini from Chicago going out. Gary Collins, Bill Schmidt, Harry Gallard, of course, was involved in the same accident. Terry Byers also. John Krebs is out. Gary Rush is out, but hopeful of still making it back in. Brad Knopfsinger in the Curb Pontiac Grand Prix. Dickie Johnson in that same accident. Rick McRae of California. Tony Spanos, one of the Australian starters. St. James Davis, who was probably the slowest man here. And John Laws of Sydney, who was taken out in that same wreck involving Dick Johnson and Alan Grice. They are the cars out, and the reason for same as Neil Bonnet comes back across the line. And the one person who has had big problems in the last couple of laps is Herschel McGriff in the 98 car. He's been in and out of the pits 3 or 4 times. Chad Little, the guy running 3rd on the racetrack at the moment in the Goodyear 500, has come into the pits on pit road. Right side tyres going on his car. There's the Ron Iso, a number 78 car.
The car was smoking. Bit of pit activity at the moment. Herschel McGriff coming back out of the pits after his 3rd stop. There's Ron Esau's car. And Neil Bonnet coming to the pits in car number 75. So the race leader, who had a 3/4 lap lead, is rushed in. And standing by is Chris Economaki.
And he coasts to a stop. He gets a drink of water. Now, this is an American crew. It's right side tires, refueling. And if it's a green flag the rest of the way, this may well be his last pit stop. Car owner Barbara Hilly working on the right front. Crew is still fueling up, keeping the engine at a nice idle. It's the first green flag, and away he goes. A beautiful stop for Neil Bonnet, who gave up the lead in making it. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. That was a very, very well-drilled pit stop for Neil Bonnet.
About 20 seconds, excluding the time to run into the pits. Lap 169, and 75 goes into 2nd place, and that's the new leader, Dave Marcus.
Dave Marcus, I believe, is still to pit.
Correct. Chad Little's pitted, so really Dave is the last one of the top 3 to make his move and show his cards.
Well, as soon as he heads to the pits, that will put Bonnet back in front, and probably Bobby Allison pretty close behind him. It's been the way.
It's probably a case of still watching out for the half-century Bobby Allison, though, at the moment. The guy just seems to have the knowledge when it comes to these long races. He took his stop early. He dropped back to 4th. But I have a feeling that we haven't seen the last of him. That's Dave Marcus, car 71. This car is owned by a gentleman in Canada who runs it in the Winston West Series on the west coast of the United States. Not the car that Marcus regularly runs in the Winston Cup Series. He rounds up Bob Howard heading into turn 3. He's in the Pennzoil entry. Just behind those cars, there's Kyle Petty in car number 21, who seems to be getting back up to speed. Dave Marcus has been a professional in stock car racing for about 20 years. 572 career starts, 5 major wins. What about the career earnings? $2.7 million. And at only 46 years of age, he could have the best part of another 15 years to go.
That's great.
I might slash my wrist.
Well, Herschel McGriff, of course, 60 years of age, and he's still enjoying his racing. They do really hang in there. Peter Mackay, though, is in the pits and has this report for us.
Yes, thank you, Michael. One of the sentimental favourites here today was Ron Iso. He ran up hard with the leaders in the early laps, but some bad news now. They've just pushed the car behind the pits. Ron, can you tell us what's the problem?
I think it broke a camshaft in the engine. We won't be able to go back out. But I'd like to thank Eurobach and McDonald's and everybody for giving me, and the Jim Robinson family for giving me the opportunity to get out here and run hard and win some money for the Jim Robinson Hospital Fund.
Do you know how much you'll get out of this?
I don't know, but I think we impressed a lot of people on the cars capable of running good. Maybe we could sell the car, anything to turn it all into some money for Jim.
Right. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you. Of course, we detailed the problems earlier for Jim Robinson and the fact that Ron Iso came to Australia with help from Eurovox car radios. They threw in $3,000 sponsorship and guaranteed to ship the car back to the United States, and that really did ease the burden of the team getting over here. So hopefully they've achieved their goal of earning some money towards that fund this afternoon.
This is Dave Marcus, car number 71. Complained a lot of the car pushing in the early days. Wednesday and Thursday, and even right up until yesterday morning.
Thunderdome officials, Mike, have just announced the official crowd here today, 46,000 people.
Well, that is a huge crowd. And I'll tell you what, it's going to take a while for all of them to get out of the infield too, let me tell you, and back out onto the Calder Highway tonight.
Top five as we have them on the racetrack at the moment, with Dave Marcus, we understand, scheduled to pit in 3 laps from now. Marcus, 71, is in the lead. From 75, Neil Bonnet, followed by car 19, Chad Little, then car 12, Bobby Allison, and 83, Sumner McKnight. 2.5 laps to go to the pit stop for Dave Marcus.
And Dave Marcus at the moment is half a lap in front of Neil Bonnet, so it's virtually an impossibility for him to get into the pit lane, make the necessary change and get back out and maintain his lead. And in fact, Dave Marcus is coming in right now. So this is going to be interesting. We'll get the stopwatch lined up and see how effective Dave's crew can be. He almost dived into the wrong pit that time. Now he's set. Chris Economaki is probably standing by. In the meantime, he'd want to be quick though, because Dave Marcus, they're going about this quickly. In fact, Dave is keen to get back out there, but they'd like to get the second churn of fuel in there before he takes off. Sort of cribbing just a little bit into the next pit bay, but I think they're ready to go. That was a smooth stop from Dave Marcus.
22 seconds.
Yeah, 71. Good stuff. Not quite as quick as Bonnet's, only a couple of seconds off the pace. And that was a remarkable performance. So our new leader is Neil Bonnet, and Bobby Allison will all the time be moving up the field. Allison comes down through the oval again, still chasing Neil Bonnet, trying to make up that. He really needs a yellow flag, Bobby Allison, at this stage of the race to help pull him back up on the tail of the leader. Carl Petty still continues around, but he's just been a little off the pace with some engine problems, we believe, with the 21 car here this afternoon. It's not an enormous gap, though, the gap between Bonnet and Allison, although when you consider how evenly matched these guys are, it's probably a very big deficit to make up from Bobby's viewpoint. I've got the watch on the gap at the moment. We'll get some idea as just how much work he's got to do. And the watch stops at 9.9 seconds. That's the gap from Bonnet to Allison, this man here. Well, a yellow flag will certainly assist him. Glenn Sturer comes to the pits in car number 18. He was one of the top 10 runners. There he is. Glenn Sturer, blue and white entry. The Chevy has killed the engine too, has he? No, he's got to fire again. They got the second churn ready. Whoops, just a second. Oh, well, there wasn't much he required anyway. He takes off down pit road to rejoin the field for the Goodyear 500, Glenn Sturer. Situation has not changed. Still Neil Bonnet, the number 75 car, driving superbly here. He has been the man that has set the pace throughout the days of practice. Fast qualifier on Friday, a break from NASCAR rules when the drivers were able to improve on their times Saturday morning in a special qualifying run. Was able to get that back. Checking them out on the Castrol scoreboard, Neil Bonnet is the race leader from Chad Little. Bobby Allison runs in third. Summer McKnight is fourth, and Dave Marcus is now back to fifth on lap 181.
Lap 187 of 280 in the Goodyear 500 coming to you from Calder Park Thunderdome. The highest placed Australian in the field just pulls into the pits, but the engine has not been running for the cool down lap, trying to come in. The hood will come up. That's Jimmy Richards, the Foster's Oldsmobile Delta. Crew chief Mick Webb, the man who of course has guided Alan Moffat in so many successful outings in Australian touring car racing. Mick has done a fine job with this team, running the second car for the Foster's Lager team. And Jimmy Richards, the Australian touring car champion, is stepping back into touring car racing a week from today in the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship here on the road course at Calder. Was running 10th in the field. Heartbreak for Jimmy Richards, because there is a good payoff, Neil, for top Australian home.
Yes, well, there's $250,000 US to be divided up amongst all the runners, and that would have given Jim a cool $5,670 US, or if you like, $7,969 to be precise in Aussie pesos.
Update on positions here, Michael. 75, as we know, Neil Bonnet in the lead. From 12, Bobby Allison is the leader. Neil Bonnet going through. Allison in second place. Car 71, Dave Marcus holding down third. They are the only three cars at the moment on the front running lap. Car 19, Chad Little in fourth place, is one lap down, followed by 83. So, 19's just gone to the pits, Chad Little, so he'll be more than one lap down, and that'll move car 83, Sumner McKnight, up to fourth place.
Cars come across the field. Of man we're following, of course, is Neil Bonnet, the man in the Valvoline car, the comeback king of NASCAR racing.
41-year-old Neil Bonnet is the pride of Bessemer in Alabama. He's been a Winston Cup Tour regular for 15 years and is recognised as one of the nice guys of the sport. From just over 300 starts, Bonnet has amassed $3 million plus in career earnings, and this year looks set for a banner season on the Winston Trail. Everything was going well for him last year until his Raymock Valvoline Pontiac clouded the wall at Charlotte Motor Speedway and put him out of racing for the last three events. 1988 has seen Neil in the Valvoline number 75 car more competitive than ever. He finished third in the Daytona 500 a fortnight ago, and only last weekend took out the Richmond 400 from Ricky Rudd and Richard Petty. It's been a big rush to get to Australia for today's Goodyear 500 at Calder, but Neil Bonnet isn't complaining. He believes strongly in the international status of NASCAR and the development of super speedway stock car racing in other countries. Australia is just the first step, and the man with the B in his bonnet wants his name inscribed in Chapter 1 this afternoon.
And he's doing just that at the moment, leading the Goodyear 500 at Calder Park Thunderdome. About to put a lap on a slower car. Decided against that, in fact, is Herschel McGriff. Decided against darting down the outside of the turn as we take race cam. We're riding with the race leader, of course, in Australia at Calder, Neil Bonnet. Doing it comfortably. Bobby Allison still running in second, about 9.8 seconds back behind the race leader. And season 88 couldn't be brighter for Neil Bonnet. As we detailed in our Nissan driver profile just a few moments ago, the end of 1987 wasn't the best for Neil. Let's go to the pits now to Chris Economaki.
Well, I'm with Phil Homer, the stock car field manager for Goodyear. Phil, this is the Goodyear 500. How is the product doing?
That's doing really well. We're running very consistent laps. The only problem we've seen today is after the big wreck, there were about 3 or 4, maybe 5 cut tires. Herschel McGriff just came in with one.
I see. It doesn't take much to cut a tire, does it?
No, these tires are very thin, and if there's any debris left anywhere in the track, as hot as they are, it can cut through the rubber.
You can go home with a smile, huh?
Yeah.
All right, Phil Homer, happy man here in pit road. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. Well, Goodyear couldn't lose today. They're all out there running on Goodyear Eagles. And there's Neil Bonnet. Robin Best now takes over as the only Australian still out there running with a chance of a $5,500 bonus. Let's go back to the pits now to Peter McKay.
Thanks, Mike. Well, bad news for Australia, bad news for Jimmy Richards. Running 10th on the track and the first Australian. The car, the Foster's #1 car, is now behind the pits, and Jim's out of the car. Jim, what was the problem?
I don't know, to be honest. It was just a loud bang from underneath the car somewhere. I thought it was maybe an engine, but I don't think it was, because there was no oil fell out of it. But I just put the clutch in and just coasted around to the pits, but there's something major wrong, but we're not sure where it's from.
Your first super speedway race, what's your impressions?
Oh, well, obviously we weren't quite going as fast as the other guys, but yeah, it's great.
You look remarkably fresh for a guy that's done a couple of hours of racing.
Well, yeah, it's not very hard when you're going at my speed.
Okay, Mike?
Can't top that at all. But Jimmy Richards, Joe Cool of the touring car set. As I mentioned earlier, he takes over one of the Peter Brock mobile BMWs next weekend for the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship here on the road course at Calder. We're on lap 198 of 280 laps. The first ever Goodyear 500, first ever NASCAR Super Speedway race in Australia. There's our race leader, Neil Bonnet, going through. But sitting with Bonnet this time as they come down the straight is in fact Herschel McGriff. Now Bonnet was able to put a lap on McGriff about 2 or 3 laps ago, but he hasn't been able to run away from him.
Yes, Phil Homer saying before that Herschel McGriff was having problems with tyres and blistered a tyre. The other fellow that I've got my eye on that's doing a great job chasing this man, Neil Bonnet, in car 75, is Sumner McKnight in the yellow Ford T-Bird, car number 83. He's coming off turn 4. Well known to motorcycle speedway devotees. He had a very successful career there before he went into NASCAR stock car racing.
He certainly did. In fact, in talking with Summer yesterday, he prefers to forget about those days when he said he was young and daring. Today he just loves to be a little more relaxed with his racing, and he does it a little bit quicker too. On the super speedways, a strong runner in the Winston West series.
He's in 4th position at the moment, down 2 laps on Neil Bonnet.
Going to come up on Chad Little, who was running 3rd. Let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Our race leader is Neil Bonnet. Bobby Allison runs in 2nd and closing. Dave Marcus is 3rd. Bobby Howard is 4th, and Ruben Garcia is 5th. Lap 250 4 of 280. The yellow flag is a flapping, and we're under caution here at Calder Park Thunderdome. During the break, debris on turn number 3. Officials were out quickly to pick up what appeared to be some metal, get it off the racetrack. At that stage, we had all the cars just about come into the pits, Bobby Allison included, and Neil Bonnet, and some very, very quick pit stops now.
Brilliant pit stops. Bobby Allison came in and out in 17 seconds. Neil Bonnet came in initially in 19 seconds and then did one lap, came back in once more. Couldn't quite see what they did on the left-hand side of the car, but made a 22-second stop, and they're now formed up behind the new Group A Holden SS Commodore. So we're frantically doing our sums as we watch Kyle Petty take his car out of the pits, car number 21. And we'll see what this does to the order.
Well, it's certainly going to bunch them up. Cars who are down a lap go to the inside.
Sumner McKnight made a stop, although I didn't get the watch on it, but it was a routine stop for fuel and tyres. So it throws the whole ball game open again.
It certainly does. I think you'll find that Allison will be back out in front with Neil Bonnet pretty close behind him. Dave Marcus should be back to third. We're getting ready to take the green, and cars pick up the pace. They're off and running. Heading down into turn number 1. Bobby Allison here takes the outside running on Herschel McGriff, but right behind him is in fact Neil Bonnet. There's McGriff's car on the inside as Bonnet now dials right in behind. Race leader Bobby Allison as they stretch it, going down the back chute, and breaking up into third is Dave Marcus. They're just clear of Summer McKnight and Bob Howe. That looks like the top 5. And Bonnet is getting serious here. They come off for the run down the inside on the tri-oval. Bonnet pulls to the inside of Bobby Allison. They pace it out, door handle to door handle. And in fact, it's Neil Bonnet who goes back into the lead. Bonnet, the 75, Valvoline Pontiac leading. Out of turn number 2, working the back straight here at Calder Thunderdome. They've opened up a little gap at this stage over Dave Marcus, who still runs in third, and they're running away from the rest of the field. Man who started a lap down on them, in fact, Herschel McGriff sits on the tail of Marcus and giving him some problems. Across the start finishing line, that familiar blue and white Valvoline Pontiac heads into turn number 1. Neil Bonnet clear. Bobby Allison, probably 2 car lengths back behind him. And back in the pits, the 32 car is in the pits at the moment after they went to green. That's Ruben Garcia. He's been running strongly here all day.
72 laps remaining in the race.
Somebody just got a black flag on the previous lap. We'll check that with race control.
Look at this. Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff side by side down into turn number 1. McGriff is trying to get off that lap that Marcus had on him, trying to pull it back and get back in company with the leaders, and they are door handle to door handle. It's been like this for 3 or 4 laps. Herschel went in a bit deeper that time, gave Dave a few problems. That is complete trust from driver to driver. And 18's also coming up to join them very, very quickly, Glenn Sturer. So this is a very, very good scrap, just back behind the leaders.
Black flag for car 30, that's Michael Waltrip.
That's right. The car is smoking on the back straight, dropping oil. That's giving officials some concern. And also coming into the pits is David Sosby. That car's looking pretty second-hand as well. Lap 210 of 280, 70 to go. Approximately 35 minutes of racing if they stay with a green flag to the completion.
This has really been a titanic scrap between Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff and Glenn Sturer, who has been gaining on these two. Looks like the 81 car is headed into the pits.
David Sosby, that car, in fact, on the other side of it has got pretty severe damage. Can't see it from that angle. But all the front of it, front right-hand corner is all knocked away.
There's Michael Waltrip. In for some a look at the engine in the 30 car. It's been blowing smoke. Michael Waltrip, of course, who came out here for his first run, 24 years of age, the brother of Darrell Waltrip. driving a Chevy Monte Carlo from Kentucky. First in the 83 Charlotte Daytona Dash Series. That's the baby class leading up to the Winston class. Runner-up, 87 Rookie of the Year for NASCAR. That is no mean achievement. 84 voted the most popular driver in NASCAR. Another one of our Nissan personality profiles, Michael Waltrip. Very, very nice young man, and appears to have a great future in the sport. Look at this, the scrap for first and second. It's back on again, the Alabama gang. Neil Bonnet, Bobby Allison, 1-2. Dave Marcus back in third. Glenn Stewart coming back up in the pack again. And these two love a race, don't they?
Oh, I wouldn't care to make a bold prediction on which way the pendulum's going to swing with these two. They are nose to tail. They've been that way all afternoon. Pretty intense racing. They round up Kyle Petty with ease, so Kyle is not in good shape. There's the shot on race cam. They've rounded up Petty and Bonnet at the moment about to lap car number 88. That's Robin Best from Tasmania.
67 laps remaining in this race. We're on lap 214 at the moment. 66 laps remaining.
This is the incredible thing about this type of racing, in that of course today we have a great mixture of drivers, not all the regulars on the NASCAR Winston Cup Trail, but a lot of the Californians and the Australians who are involved. But this is the type of racing that they do have in the United States. Not just these two cars, but you can get up to 30 cars still running nose to tail and jumping out of the draft, ducking down on the inside or trying to pass the outside. Coming off turn 2, Bonnet, 75, and Bobby Allison in the 12 car. Looks like they're going past Chad Little with the Coors Thunderbird. Diving down low. Watch the foot action next time we take race cam. At the moment, though, here's Allison making a very bold bid down the outside. Bonnet is going to use the low line.
Bit of left foot braking again from Neil Bonnet. Just saw a glimpse of it.
Look at Allison, though, swinging to the outside. And Neil Bonnet fighting Bobby Allison for the race lead, but I think Allison has got around the outside to lead it, going down the back straight.
Certainly has, and he's pulled about 4 or 5 car lengths. You can see the gap heading into turn 3. Allison's amazing when he gets up on that high line. I don't know how he gets the speed out of the car and keeps it off the wall.
The fast groove at tracks like Daytona, we find are probably only less than a metre off the wall, and no one drives them higher than Bobby Allison.
Well, he's got a feel for his motor car. Gary Rush said to me earlier in the week that was probably the hardest thing to find or discover about this form of racing. It's very hard to get just the right feel. You rush into a corner and think everything's under control, and all of a sudden the bells start ringing and you've got lots of drama.
He's opened up quite a gap now. Car beautifully set, comes across the start finishing line. In fact, just sounding like Neil Bonnet could have been just a little off the pace that time.
Allison's made a big gap on that lap. It's a huge gap. Check the time.
Well, if he has got troubles, that's really going to leave Dave Marcus to run up behind him very quickly. Let's check them out on the Castrol scoreboard. Bobby Allison is your race leader in the Buick, clear of Neil Bonnet, the Valvoline Pontiac. Dave Marcus is third, Summer McKnight is fourth, and Bob Howard rounds off the top 5.
Even my own man looks.
He's going back through the field. Welcome back to Calder Park Thunderdome. Bob Howard in the Pennzoil car coming back into the pits, and the reason he is heading into the pits is what you're about to see on the Goodyear recap. Wham, slam, straight off the wall, around sideways, then back down across the infield into the grass area. Not too much in the way of space between there and the concrete wall, so Bob Howard has had a big hit, and that has brought out the yellow flag. Now 225 laps completed of 280. And we're under caution at Calder Park Thunderdome.
Whilst the yellow flag was out, Neil Bonnet took the opportunity to pit. Spent 20 seconds in the pit, so I think that he might have a problem because that's his third stop in the space of half an hour. Sumner McKnight has just gone in and out. In fact, he's being held at the end of pit lane at the moment. Now he joins the end of the field. Dave Marcus has been in. His stop was very quick. It was about 10 seconds.
Yeah, 11 seconds exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they're closing it up now behind the pace car. What we will see is a sprint, certainly, to the checkered flag, 280 lap schedule.
12 survivors in the race at this stage.
And they're on lap 225 of 280. Ruben Garcia's been in and out of the pits more times than I've had hot lunches, and Kyle Petty has come back in and is going out once more.
That makes 13, 14, 15 cars still up and running then.
Of course, still the highest placed Australian out there in the field is Robin Best of Tasmania in the number 88 car. There's Bob Howard's car, the Pennzoil car. He's given that a good working over in the rear end. Bob, of course, is a protege of Winston West Series champion Jim Robinson, the man who was speaking about earlier. Howard is certainly no newcomer to the Winston West Series, starting only 9 events in the past 2 years. Howard is a building contractor in Colorado Springs, Colorado, a community which includes the United States Air Force Academy. Is a successful short track stock car driver before shifting his attention to the Winston West circuit. Drives the number 89, rather bent Pennzoil Delta 88.
He's just retired from his job as a construction company owner. Only a small company, turning between 10 and 15 million dollars a year.
He certainly enjoys his racing, but and was running quite well in the field until that incident down in turn 1 that brought out the caution.
They've got about 3/4 of a lap to run under caution before the green flag gets them restarted once again. The order: Neil Bonnet, car 75 leads from Bobby Allison, car 12. Dave Marcus third, car 71. Down 2 laps, car 83, Sumner McKnight. Just made a quick trip to the pits. Down 4 laps. In 5th place is Terry Petrus in car 15. And also down the same number of laps, car 89, Bob Howard. They're still working on his car. He might be able to get back out there with a bit of luck and fingers crossed.
Here's Terry Petrus, who was down a lap. Neil Bonnet, the 75 car.
Terry Petrus is a good guy. I spoke to him in the pits yesterday. He started position 19, row 10, the building superintendent. Runs the Winston West Series, and he was the Rookie of the Year in 1986 as we prepare now for a green flag and a restart.
Where they started now doesn't seem to matter much, does it?
Getting ready for the restart. Yellow flag at the ready. Pace car goes to the pits, and we're in for a sprint now for the closing stages of the Goodyear 500. It's Bobby Allison in car number 12 who leads them down into turn number 1. Dave Marcus is very, very close to him though, as they round up Glenn Sturer on the outside, and now Neil Bonnet gets into the draft as they make it onto the back straight. Look how close they are now. Sturer in the 18 car deciding to race Bobby Allison, and getting the split as the 71 car. How close are they as Dave Marcus goes in lower than anyone? Almost caught the tail that time of Sturer as they come off. Well, Sturer, and now Dave Marcus, and Bonnet pokes the nose up on the inside. Who said this race was over?
Lap 228. Dave Marcus on the attack. Glenn Sturer wants to play with the big boys, and Neil Bonnet stuck in there behind in 2nd place at the moment. Wasn't that stuff from Racecam fascinating, the way he was alternating between left foot braking and getting on the gas, and now he's attacking Dave Marcus once again. Let's watch him as he goes into turn 3 on the brakes. Still on the brakes, a little bit of acceleration and then back on the power hard, and Marcus's car really loose in the rear end that time, coming out of turn 4, side by side as they go down the front straight, and the crowd reacting to the excitement.
Neil Bonnet coming down on the inside, but Marcus will not give way. If he can hold it there on the high line, I don't think he can, because Bonnet will get the drive coming out of turn 2. Slingshot down on the inside, but Marcus has got plenty of horsepower. They race it out side by side up into turn number 3, and Bobby Allison sits in the draft of Neil Bonnet.
Well, he's getting the double draft there when the two of them were so close together. has an opportunity to sit back. Oh, Bonnet's car getting a little out of shape. Oh, and he touches Marcus as they come off turn 4. And Bobby Allison goes through on the inside and has a crack at the lead. Allison down to turn 1. Fantastic stuff. They're sprinting now to the checkered flag and the Goodyear 500. Swinging out onto the back straight. This fascinating dice that we've seen all day long here at Calder Park Thunderdome. Bobby Allison goes through. Car number 12 being tailed here by Neil Bonnet. Marcus is still working that outside groove. Not a bad job at it, but now it's Bonnet who gets the inside edge as they come off the turn, and Bonnet will now work to the inside on the tri-oval, and he does it and takes Marcus along for the ride. Sturer is back behind them, and Herschel McGriff. You'd think it was just a sprint race that started a few laps ago. 46,000 customers here at Calder Park are up on their feet cheering for this race at the moment, and Glenn Sturer gets in all sorts of strife that time on turn 2, goes up high, drops to the end of the field as the battle continues. Bonnet leads by about 3 car lengths from Bobby Allison, Dave Marcus in 3rd place, and Herschel McGriff behind him. Expect to see Bobby Allison up shortly if he can catch onto the draft here from Neil Bonnet, but Bonnet is working the inside of this racetrack beautifully. Marcus back in 3rd. Herschel McGriff comes up in the 4th spot as they come through the tri-oval down into turn number 1. Marcus there harrying Bobby Allison all the time, and that gap that Allison opened up a little earlier on Neil Bonnet is now open the other way. Bonnet stretches it by 2 car lengths, working the back straight, doing it nicely, but look at the scrap for 3rd place. There's plenty of fight left with these guys. As you suggested before, Mike, it's like a sprint race. And here's McGriff now, Herschel McGriff, 60 years of age. He goes down the inside of Dave. Marcus wants to do a bit of racing here for a while. Marcus runs in 3rd, car number 71. McGriff is on the inside of him. Petrus is up there keeping them company too. And we'll see if McGriff's got the drive. Yes, they have, side by side down the back straight again. Up into turn number 3. And all the time, Bobby Allison is still closing on our race leader, Neil Bonnet, as they come off turn 4 and work the tri-oval. Bonnet probably with a 2-car break over Bobby Allison, a 4-car break, then back to Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff. You see that car on the tail of the field, that's Glenn Sturer, car number 8. He was mixing it with the heavies only a couple of laps ago, and they've certainly given him a decent serve at the moment. Boy, playing for keeps in those last few laps. Amazing stuff. The order 75 and 12. I think Michael Waltrip still limping around. Neil Bonnet, meantime, stretches it, coming down the front straight, down into turn number 1 off the tri-oval. There's Herschel McGriff, car number 68. He's been tailing Dave Marcus, looking for a little share of the action for 3rd. And at this stage, as they move down the back straight, it's Allison making the charge again, trying to get into that draft behind Neil Bonnet. Bonnet is opening all the doors for him, but he just can't catch it at the moment. About to come off onto the tri-oval now. Little kick in the front straight. There's the gap, you can see it. Neil Bonnet, 75, the Raymond Valvoline Pontiac, driving beautifully. Let's check them out on the Castrol scoreboard. At this stage of the race, Neil Bonnet, race leader from Bobby Allison. Dave Marcus runs in 3rd. Summer McKnight is 4th. Terry Petrus is 5th.
Lap 241, 280. We have a yellow flag situation at Calder Park Thunderdome, where some metal had come off one of the race cars on turn number 2. The yellow caution flag came out and Bonnet went straight to the pits for a 22-second stop. Probably got a set of sprinting tyres on there, I'd say, and he's trying to catch the field up quickly.
He didn't take any fuel. They didn't work on the left-hand side of the car. They put 2 wheels and tyres on the right-hand side of the car, which is the side that's working hard. And they've still got at least one more lap to do under caution as Ruben Garcia heads to the pits, joined by JC Danielson in car number 82.
It looks like Robin Best also coming in, the survivor of the Australians, and Neil Bonnet coming in yet again.
And into the pits, yes.
He's not going to lose anything by this, because he'll pick the field up again. He's going to have to start
now
up towards the back anyway.
Now they're working the left-hand side of the car. That's pretty good thinking, isn't it?
Yeah. That's one good thing about the yellow flag caution laps. As long as you can get out there quickly and join up on the queue, and keeping in mind, he will move up behind Bobby Allison. That was a lightning one.
Yeah, 19 seconds, and the rationale there, of course, is that just in case the green flag had come out that lap, he was in a fighting position. As it didn't, he decided to make for a full set of boots.
Well, they changed the vital right-hand side first.
Yes, yeah. So they have to think not only in terms of the elbow-to-elbow racing, but also the tactics of the game. And these guys are pretty experienced at it.
They certainly are, ducking in and out of the pits. We expect the pace car maybe to come off on lap 242 of 280. The inaugural Goodyear 500 from Bob Jane's Calder Park Thunderdome. Hope you're enjoying our telecast across Australia on the Australian Television Network, another 7 Sport exclusive. And also greetings extended to the ESPN Total Sports Network of the United States and our viewers throughout Europe.
We're down to 14 cars now out of 32 starters.
And they've been given a signal for one more lap under caution. Bob Howard, incidentally, who took a whack up in turn 2, shortened the wheelbase of his car by about 4'6", is out and running once again. They've effected some repairs on the car. Herschel McGriff doing some manoeuvring at the head of the pack there.
He's doing his...
Look at the size of this crowd in the background. 46,000 people, and only about 10 minutes ago they were standing on their feet and cheering for the battle that we saw between Neil Bonnet and Bobby Allison, battling for the lead after about 2 hours of racing. There's Allison, car 12, on the outside of Herschel McGriff. 71 is Dave Marcus, 15 is Terry Petrus. In behind them we've got Neil Bonnet, car 75, and Glenn Stewart, car 18. Sumner McKnight also up there in the yellow T-Bird. He's just in the right of frame. And they're the guys at the business end of the field in these closing stages.
Well, you can expect an absolute thriller all the way to the checkered flag if we don't have another yellow flag caution period, because on the outside groove, leading the race is Bobby Allison and the number 12 Buick, the winner of the Daytona 500. Sitting in behind him, of course, is Dave Marcus. And then on the outside of row 3, running third, is, of course, Neil Bonnet in the number 75 Raymock team, Valvoline Pontiac.
As they prepare for a restart, it's interesting, they're still running 29-second laps, and Richard Petty has an unofficial lap record here of 28.2.
28.2, that was set on soft compound rubber. That was an unofficial record, as you mentioned, but we have the pace car ready to come off the racetrack, and we're looking at a green flag situation for the final sprint of the Goodyear 500 from Calder Park Thunderdome. Let's turn them loose. Bobby Allison gets the break. Bonnet was very, very slow to move. Will have to swing down the outside of Herschel McGriff. Dave Marcus, meanwhile, moves up on the tail of race leader Bobby Allison as they come off turn 2 and now work onto the back straight, and expect a half a lap before you see Neil Bonnet and the Valvoline car come running up on them. Yes, he's doing that now as I speak, and we take race cam from Neil Bonnet's car. 7 race cam now as Dave Marcus sits right in behind Bobby Allison, and Neil Bonnet comes storming back at them yet again. They come across the strike. Allison, Marcus, Neil Bonnet looking towards the inside if he can pull a pass off right behind them.
See the tacho on Bonnet's car sitting up at around about 7.3, 7.4. He really gets his boot into it now, tucks down on the inside, wants to attack Dave Marcus. He's pulled the move off and goes up to second place once again. Neil Bonnet pushing real hard. You know, they make 200 or 300 RPM when they can get in behind the draft, and that's the advantage that Neil Bonnet had that time.
He's closing now on race leader Bobby Allison and the Buick as they come across the tri-oval. Now past the start-finishing line, Allison leads, Bonnet in second. Marcus is the next one back. Herschel McGriff, who was down a couple of laps but able to stay and run with the race leaders. They come off 2 onto the back straight. Has Bonnet got something left? Herschel McGriff now Dave Marcus side by side, and McGriff goes back on the inside. That has been a fascinating dice, but the one up in front is even better as Bonnet coming off turn 4 down through the tri-oval will take the lead back in the sprint to the flag. Bonnet still in front, Alice now in the second spot, and Dave Marcus still runs in third.
You know, these guys have been in the cars now for almost 3 hours. The cabin temperatures are between 135 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and they're still driving as though this were a 5-lap sprint.
Coming off turn 4, the Valvoline Raymond Pontiac. Neil Bonnet at the lead of the race. Winner of the Richmond 400 only last weekend. Bobby Allison sits in second. Winner of the Daytona 500. Turn 2 now onto the back straight. Not too much between them. Still probably a couple of car lengths. Herschel McGriff has broken clear of Dave Marcus. He'd like to pull a lap back if he possibly could. Terry Petrus is also in there. He's driven a fine race here.
247 laps down, 33 laps to go.
There they go, down through the tri-oval into turn number 1. No doubt we still have a race on our hands in the sprint to the flag. Coming off 2, and Allison again has been working that high groove, the top side of the race course. We'll pick up the Castrol scoreboard. Neil Bonnet is the race leader for Valvoline. Bobby Allison second. Dave Marcus is third. Summer McKnight is in 4th place, and Glenn Sturrer runs in 5th. Lap 255 of 280 in the Goodyear 500, and we in fact have what appears to be a bumper bar out in the racetrack. A yellow flag caution period. Bobby Allison has gone to the pits at the same time.
They're changing tyres on the right-hand side. That's the working side.
Let's have a look at what the reason was. Aha, Michael Waltrip in car number 30, heading on down the back straight. Whoop, there goes the rear bumper. That's the reason the yellow flag has come out. It landed up against the wall, and Bobby Allison, race leader for quite a part of this event.
He's been in so far for 25 seconds. Petrus has just left the pit area. That's Allison at the wheel. Car number 21, Kyle Petty, has got a whole bunch of steam coming out of his car at the moment. They're now working the left-hand side of Bobby Allison's car. Meanwhile, the field is coming out of 3, and Allison departs. 41 seconds spent in the pits, but he'll be able to team up on the end of this field.
There's the yellow flag. Certainly been showing that rascal today. Quite a number of caution periods, the most serious one obviously for the big wreck that we had involving Alan Grice.
One more lap under caution. Chad Little to the pits, car number 19, so good break for Bobby Allison. He gets plenty of time to make it back up onto the end of the field, because as the leaders come down the main straight, he's just heading down towards turn 1, lap 256 of 280. Petty was losing a lot of steam from the car in the pits only a few moments ago. Allison, meanwhile, has just tagged onto the back of the bunch. Hasn't been a good day for Kyle Petty.
The cars that are on the same lap are the cars running the outside line. Neil Bonnet, race leader, the 71 car. Dave Marcus runs in second. Bobby Allison in the number 12 Buick runs third. And those cars on the inside, of course, are the cars that are down 1 or more laps. Race cam with Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Pontiac. Herschel McGriff once again gets a run down on the inside of the lap cars. Hasn't he been a strong performer today?
He could outlast a lot of them the way he's going at the moment. Car number 98, Herschel McGriff, 60 years of age. What did I say? He started in 1945.
He gets a new car, he'll be a dynamo when he reaches 70. So the man who sits on the inside, down a lap, Herschel McGriff, 60 years of age. Neil Bonnet, of course, who has reached the 40 mark, and sitting back behind him in third place is, of course, Bobby Allison, who is 50 years of age in the pace car, about to come to the pit area.
And Allison doesn't have to tag onto the end of the field. He, in fact, goes up on the high line, goes into his third position, if you're wondering what that's all about, as we approach the restart.
Ready now for the final run. We have had 25 lead changes as of lap 255. We're ready to go racing in the final sprint for the Goodyear 500 from Calder Park. Neil Bonnet leads the shortened pack down into turn number 1. Herschel McGriff sticks it down on the inside of Dave Marcus as they swing out of there. And back behind Marcus is Bobby Allison, who really needs to get on with this if he's going to haul in Neil Bonnet. They work the back straight. McGriff on the inside. Dave Marcus still running strongly up there in second spot, the number 71 car. Privateer, Winston Cup Racing, doing a splendid job here down under today. Across the start-finish line. Allison is just sprinting down the inside this time of Herschel McGriff, almost a touch of fenders, but he'll force his way back to an inside run through turn number 2. Yes, he does just that. He catches Marcus out wide as they work the back straight. Allison, the tyres now working. He's on the hunt, going after Neil Bonnet. Blows by Dave Marcus as they go up into turn number 3, drops it on the low side. Marcus sits in for the draft. And at this stage, as they come onto the straight, there's probably a 5-car length break. Neil Bonnet across the line. Bobby Allison, then Dave Marcus.
You might wonder why so many of these cars are limping around at the back of the pack. If you finished in 15th place, you've still got $7,000 to play with. And look at Herschel McGriff. He knows how much money's at stake. He wants to be a part of this first ever Australian NASCAR stock car race at the right end of the field. Battling at the moment with Dave Marcus coming off turn 4, in towards the tri-oval. Allison in the foreground. Marcus alongside McGriff, and Bonnet disappearing into the western sunset.
Well, Tasmania's Robin Best is still out there circulating as well, the only Australian left. It looks like he's headed for a top 10 finish, about 8th, 9th, 10th, depending on how they wind up at the checkered flag. And he's going to pick up a bonus of $5,000 for being the first Australian home, plus about another $8,000 in prize money.
Well, he deserves every cent of that amount of money.
And black flag has been shown to car number 89, Bob Howard. He's literally doing 30 miles an hour around the course at the moment as Bonnet goes through. Look at this battle side by side. Herschel McGriff touches the inside of Marcus's car.
20 laps to go.
Wasn't that something else? He's working the low line as Hershey.
Comes down the Hershey smile.
He certainly will as he winds up on the inside of Dave Marcus, the racing 60-year-old. This time he catches him just deeply. Just see if the cars touch as they come off the corner. They did last time. Down through the tri-oval. You can't get closer racing than that. Meanwhile, Neil Bonnet still holding a break over Bobby Allison. That's probably reduced to about 4 car lengths as they work the back straight.
Dave Marcus went so close to the fence that time. He went right up wide. He got to within a foot or so of the concrete wall and managed to wrestle it off, and that's allowed McGriff to go back underneath. Now he's got a charge on once more on the outside as they head down towards turn 3. And once again, Marcus is up very high on the track, and McGriff goes through on the inside.
Fantastic racing. Herschel McGriff and Dave Marcus, elbow to elbow. Only the sheet metal separating them, and there's not much of that. Down into turn 1. Did they touch? Marcus using the high line. He'll get the drive out of the corner, will he? Or has Herschel McGriff broken clear?
They're on lap 262, 18 to go.
18 laps remain in the Goodyear 500 from Calder Park, Thunderdome. Can Bobby Allison haul in race leader Neil Bonnet? Dave Marcus running in third in the 71 car. McGriff was only trying to unlap himself. And there's the gap between race leader Neil Bonnet and, of course, Bobby Allison. They're
Allison is closing.
He certainly is.
Closing quite dramatically, and the gap is now only 1.3 seconds. It was out to about 3.5 only 5 laps ago.
Bonnet on the low side through turn number 4 as they come back onto the tri-oval. Runs it out very high against the wall. Gets the line right again for the run through the tri-oval down to turn number 1. Herschel McGriff has proven a point, I guess. He's got up there, but Neil Bonnet at this stage has a clear racetrack in front of him as he comes down the back straight.
Well, Allison has broken clear by about 4.5 seconds from McGriff and Marcus. Neil Bonnet, one of the real stars of the Winston Cup Series. We're so lucky to have him in Australia, having won the last round last weekend. 302 career starts, 16 major wins, career earnings just over $3 million. Neil Bonnet, one of the Nissan super personalities that's made the trip to Australia this weekend.
And has stamped his mark on the Goodyear 500. Here he is coming off turn 2 on the back chute. The Valvoline Pontiac has run superbly here all day, as has Bobby Allison's Buick. It's coming down to pay dirt, as they say, laps at Wembley. Bobby Allison, who was doing so well about the middle stages of this race, working the outside groove. Maybe that gap has opened up just a bit again on Bobby Allison. Maybe, has he anything left? There's the gap. I think that has opened.
Yes, it has. 1.66 on lap 267 of 280. So Allison made a bit of a run. And the gap back to Herschel McGriff from Allison is 3.9 seconds. And he's now started to tail Dave Marcus fairly easily. So Bonnet at the moment, the man in control, fresh from his win last weekend in the Richmond 400. Bobby Allison, the winner of the opening round of the Winston Cup Series of '88 and a 3-time Daytona 500 winner. And it's really boiling down to a 2-man battle. $250,000 US to be divided up amongst 15 drivers at the end of this competition. And they've been racing now for exactly 3 hours.
There's the Valvoline Pontiac 75 coming back through the tri-oval, and there's Bobby Allison, the man that's stalking the race leader Neil Bonnet. They were just bumper to bumper for the opening 240 laps of this race. Allison set for a banner year. Of course, in NASCAR competition last year, 87 was always be recalled as the year that Dale Earnhardt just about took everything. And Bobby Allison has opened the same way, winning at Daytona. But Neil Bonnet, who was super tough last year until taken out of racing towards the end of the season with a bang in the Oakwood Homes race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Here he is in traffic now, handling that superbly, brushes by Michael Waltrip in the 30 car and works the back straight.
Lap 270 of 280. Watch Neil Bonnet, the master at work. Very definite in the way that he handles the car. Watch the tacho, it's hovering up at around mid-sevens at the moment. This is the tri-oval, a long left-hand curve. Punch on the brakes, straighten the car so that it doesn't get out of shape. It gets all light as he goes over the top of that little rise. Puts the power back down smoothly from about midway through the turn, rounds up Kyle Petty and makes his way down the back straight, which is dead straight, in towards turn 3. Lifts a little, left foot brake, gentle transition to power, and back onto the tri-oval again. How'd you like to do that? 280 times, 28 seconds a lap.
He's been doing it all day here in the Goodyear 500. There's the split. Race leader Neil Bonnet to Bobby Allison. 9 laps to go, and I tell you what, I still believe there might be some fight left in Bobby Allison in the 12 car.
Well, the gap's closed slightly again, Mike. It's under a second, well under a second now, about half a second. In fact, it's becoming immeasurable on my poor old watch. The two of them getting very close.
Is Bobby Allison the man on the move? It looks a bit that way with laps running out. Bonnet into turn number 1, the low line. Allison has been able to do so much better on the outside groove, and Allison is coming home like you couldn't believe.
30 lead changes in this race with 9 laps to run. Neil Bonnet the leader from Bobby Allison, Dave Marcus in third, and then down some laps is Sumner McKnight, car number 83, and Terry Petrus, car number 15. They're the top 5.
Just on 8 laps to go as Bonnet takes them across the strike. Allison still chasing him hard. And of course Dave Marcus back behind them, the 71 car running third on the racetrack.
That gap is closing again. 0.4 of a second I measure at this time. That's Neil Bonnet, car 75. Lap 273 of 280.
He's coming up on 2 cars. He's got a lap if he's held up for a moment here. He'll have Bobby Allison up close behind him. Here comes Bonnet. 2 to pass. He'll swing it back on the inside. Takes Robin Best. Moves up on the number 82 car. JC Danielson moves swiftly to the outside. Boy, that was a move and a half. Bobby Allison has to make his own arrangements at this stage, and in fact gets caught down the inside. That has opened the gap up yet again as Bonnet works the back straight. Allison trying to split the 2 cars.
Yeah, that was a real good break for Neil Bonnet. It's now out to 1.1 seconds. He pulled half a second in one move alone. And although those drivers were being shown the move over flag, they're not responding too quickly, I don't think. 5 laps to go now as they cross the start-finish line, and Neil Bonnet looking good.
I think any chance that Bobby Allison had of hauling in Neil Bonnet disappeared in that exchange of traffic. There's Bonnet slipping around the outside of Michael Waltrip for probably the, I don't know, maybe the 15th time today. Allison trying to save the best for last. We'll have to wait and see.
1.34 seconds, so it's opened another 2/10 since the previous lap. Neil Bonnet, can he make it 2 wins on 2 weekends in a row?
That would certainly please him greatly. Lynn Manley and all the folk from Valvoline back in the United States. Neil Bonnet, 75. Raymock, Valvoline Pontiac.
Out to 1.6 seconds. He's still pulling time on Bobby Allison. He's up for $42,000 US if he can pick a win, or 59,000 Aussie dollars. And Bobby Allison really trying to do everything he can within his power at the moment to peg the gap, but the car just does not seem to have the grip that Bonnet's car has.
Down through the tri-oval yet again. Allison, the man on the charts, trying to pull back inch by inch on the race leader, Neil Bonnet. A long way back to Dave Marcus, who runs in third. In fact, Marcus has dropped off the pace appreciably in the last couple of laps. Here's the man that has done everything right in Australia, the land down under for the Goodyear 500. Sweeps down the back straight.
Gap is back to 1.2 seconds.
Turn number 4 now comes up as they come out of there down through the tri-oval.
Gap's down to 0.93 with 2 laps to go. Less than a second separating first and second with just over 3 hours to go, and a wreck coming out of turn 4. JC Danielson spins. Yellow flag will come out, or will it? If he can clear the circuit, it may not in fact come out.
No, I think he's okay. He's pulled back out onto the racetrack, and I don't think he's left any oil or debris up there. That would have been a cruel blow for Bobby Allison, who has really stalked Neil Bonnet. We're waiting for the white flag. It's coming out. The Goodyear 500 comes down to the last lap, and we have Bobby Allison closing on race leader Neil Bonnet as they head off the tri-oval down into turn number 1.
Half a second, 0.56 separating them as they make the run down the back straight for the last time.
They've got cars to wind in and out of before they reach turn number 3. Neil Bonnet driving for the Raymock Valvoline team halfway using the low side of the circuit. The team is ready to jump. Turn 4 out, down through the tri-oval. The checkered flag is at the ready, and Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Pontiac strikes gold. Second place will go to Bobby Allison in the number 12 Buick, and third place is Dave Marcus in the number 71 car. What a race, what a drive from Neil Bonnet.
Well, half a second separating first from second in over 3 hours of motorsport, in the first ever NASCAR stock car race outside the US here at Calder Park Thunderdome in Melbourne.
The people wanted to know what stock car racing was all about on an oval. That split at the end of 280 laps.
And Ruben Garcia not quite making it to the checkered flag, or not the way he'd like to, at least, as he came off turn number 4. He got out of shape, tapped the wall, spun, and now trickles down to the line.
There's a huge reception coming for our race winner, Neil Bonnet, as he heads down towards Victory Lane. We'll be talking with Neil, Bobby Allison, and of course Dave Marcus and some of the guys who fell out. There's the race winner pulling up, and just in that last corner, let's take a look at our Goodyear replay and see actually what happened. I think it was Ruben Garcia who got it around sideways. Let's roll and see what happened. That was one of the earlier accidents that we saw today. We'll be detailing those for you shortly. There's a harmless spin out there by one of the cars up into number 4. Meantime, we have the 75 car, the Valvoline Pontiac, that's been so superbly driven by Neil Bonnet today at Calder Park Thunderdome. And of course, Bobby Allison and Dave Marcus. 1, 2, 3.
Dave Marcus enjoys a birthday on Tuesday, and he'll be on the way back to the States tomorrow morning to continue testing. 47 years of age. Bobby Allison 50, Neil Bonnet 41. And there's Bonnet.
Yeah, give me a Goodyear, I'll use it. Yeah, well, we'll do it when we get upstairs.
Getting ready for the promotional caps. Neil Bonnet, let's take that wheel off and bring him out of the race car. Bill Borich from Union there as well. Let's go down to Chris Economaki.
Okay, we're down here. He goes over to congratulate Bobby Allison, members of the Alabama gang. Let's get you guys here, Neil. Hey, congratulations, Neil. You're really on a roll. One at Richmond and now here in Australia. What kind of a day was it for you?
Well, it wasn't as easy as it looked like. Bobby got awful good when the race started. He's an expert at setting the chassis in hot weather, and Bobby had his car in good shape, but my guy just kept coming back every time we'd pit and work on the car. You know, first thing I want to do is thank these Australian people for being so nice to us over here. We've had a good time.
What about that big crash up there? Were you close?
No, but they called me on the radio and said it's a bad wreck. How's Alan Grice and those guys? Everybody okay?
He's got a broken collarbone. Other than that, he's okay.
Well, I hate to hear that for Alan, but I'm glad everybody's not hurt any worse than that.
Okay, congratulations, Neil. But let me get a word here with Bobby. Bobby, you're huffing and puffing, huh?
Yeah, Chris, it was a hard run there at the end. We were just trying our best to catch up with Neil, and he had a little too much stuff for us there at the end.
What about the track? Did it get better as the race wore on?
Yeah, the track was good. It's bumpy, and the rise going in the corner gave the guys a lot of trouble. But it's a nice track, and Bob Jane deserves a lot of credit for putting this thing together down here.
How about that big crash, Bobby? Were you near that?
No, fortunately, I was ahead of it, so I didn't see anything of what happened.
Okay, congratulations and good luck to you. Let's get a hold of Dave Marcus over here. Dave, what are you frowning about?
It's a tough race, Chris. Neil and Bobby were real good. You know, their cars were working good, and I had to drive really hard all day just to try and keep up to them. But I enjoyed it. It's a nice facility, and it's a great honor to come over here in Australia and be in the first NASCAR event. So I had a great time.
What'd you have for breakfast, Dave? I saw you pull alongside of Bobby Allison there. You went wild there about 50 laps ago. What happened?
Well, Chris, we're running up front, and that's what racing's all about. And I know these Australian people want to see a good race, so we try and give them a good show.
Well, you certainly did that. Congratulations, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the story from Victory Lane. It's been a great race. And for Chris Economack here, I want to say to my good friends down in this part of the country, happy birthday, Australia.
Thank you very much, Chris Economaki. So beautifully handled, asking Dave Marcus what he had for breakfast just because he came on gangbusters with about 25 laps to go. They certainly have a way about them of being able to thank their sponsors, and we've seen a great race from Neil Bonnet, Bobby Allison and Dave Marcus. A lot of sad stories to come out of the race. It was particularly sad to see Alan Grice, who tried so hard to win this race, to go out and have to wind up in hospital with a broken collarbone, but we believe apart from some very, very severe bruising that Alan is quite okay. Of course, the huge crowd here today came to see a close race, and as Neil detailed for us only a few minutes ago before the presentation, after 280 laps, 500 kilometres, the split was half a second between Neil Bonnet and, of course, Bobby Allison. You don't get racing much closer than that.
No, it really is extraordinary. Summarising what we've seen in the day, it's certainly something completely different, and I think that we're looking forward to a strong future in this type of racing down in this part of the world. So that's something to look forward to, with particularly our big telecast coming up at the end of the year.
Yes, we have more NASCAR racing to come, but in the meantime, let's recap the placings in the Goodyear 500. The race winner, Neil Bonnet from Alabama. Second, Bobby Allison of Alabama. Third, Dave Marcus. Fourth spot going to Summer McKnight, a great drive. And fifth to Glenn Sturrow. We'll be back in a moment.
Back here at the Calder Thunderdome, time to congratulate the first Australian home in the Goodyear 500. In fact, the only Australian survivor. Robin, best fantastic effort.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're very, very pleased. The car was loose right from the start of the race. We've had a good run all week, and it was nice and tight, and it was getting around good, but for some reason, I guess I've never driven in a race like this and on a racetrack like this, so I don't really know what to experience. But as the race went on, the car seemed to get a little looser and looser. The radios went out, and well, we had one or two problems, and
you've got to be good to survive what goes on out there, though, haven't you?
Oh, you got that right. It's unbelievable. It's an experience that, I can't believe I'm here.
You've made a huge investment to get here. You've got some money to come back, a $7,000 bonus for being the first and only Australian home. And I think if they check the placings carefully, you might squeak into the top 10, which is worth about another 10 grand.
Oh, that's great. I don't know where I come. I got no idea. I just went round and round and round and held onto the thing just as I just muscled the thing from start to finish.
You're happy with the exercise?
Oh, I am. And I must thank my crew very much and my sponsors, AWA and A&L and Ansett and budget leasing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just not.
You're not quite with
okay,
it?
No.
Still going around in
okay,
circles,
I am, yeah.
It's been a big effort. Congratulations
thank you
again.
so much.
Robin Best from Tasmania, the only Australian to finish the Goodyear 500. Here's Mike Raymond.
Well, thank you very much, Gary Wilkinson. Of course, the presentation's taking place at the moment. Bobby Allison, of course, would be delighted with his second placing this afternoon. To Neil Bonnet, they're fierce racing rivals. They call them the Alabama gang. And, of course, they have been ambassadors for their sport here in Australia for the last week. It's pretty hard to break a tour schedule that takes in, 32 races for so many millions of dollars, to break that after one or two races, such as the Daytona 500 or the Richmond 400, and come down here and get out of whack with the rest of the United States.
I think the thing that impressed me most about these guys, Mike, was that they came to this racetrack, broke up their Winston Cup series, got into unfamiliar cars, dialed them in within the space of 2 or 3 days, and got the cars totally on the pace, got down to times around the mid-28s, lapped in an average speed of 140 miles an hour, raced flat out for over 3 hours and finished up half a second apart. It really is an incredible equation.
I think we're all a little sad today that we had so many Australian chances in the race. Alan Grice, of course, was a big chance. And unfortunately, Gricey went out a little earlier in quite a spectacular accident that involved Dick Johnson. Let's have a look at that again. There's Dick Johnson going in, and the 17 car was started off by Harry Goulart, and then Alan Grice arrived in the number 03 Foster's Oldsmobile and went in there absolutely flat chat. He was trying to get around sideways and wash off some speed. There was no way in the world that he could. Then, of course, a little later on, Dick Johnson, of course, was running so strongly, he'd made his way up into the top 10 from another angle. Johnson catches up the 96 car, gets involved with Galati. And Alan Grice, just how heavy was that contact? It was unbelievable. Grice, we're very, very happy to say, apart from a broken collarbone, is quite okay. And I tell you what, the drivers have taken wrecks like that in the United States with a cockpit into another car that haven't been all that well afterwards.
Not at all, and I think we should pay some respect to John Shepherd and his team. They built that car. The car was kitted out perfectly, and the roll cages in those cars are just so safe. I mean, it slammed into another car virtually that was dead stop. It probably speeds around 150 odd mile an hour, and Alan's probably a very lucky guy to get away with what he has.
Well, today, of course, was the first NASCAR event in Australia. It's opened the door for quite a number of other events. The pinnacle, of course, that Bob Jane is looking for is the final round of the Winston Cup Series, and he's hopeful that he might get that, the last round in 1989. At the moment, though, they have another big race planned here at Calder Park the last weekend in November of this year, And that's when they believe that Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty and all the other top drivers will come out, because it'll be a week after the NASCAR Series finishes in the States.
Well, can you imagine having guys out here like Bill Elliott, the guy that took off, what, $2 million in prize money last year? Ironhead Earnhardt, I think they call him, the guy races real tough. At last year in the Winston Cup Series, he just drove so hard, because we've seen a lot of those programs, of course, throughout our 7 Motorsport coverage last year. And if we could have those fellas on Australian soil, it would be marvellous entertainment. I'm sure you'll agree.
Well, today's purse, of course, ran over $250,000. The big talk is that maybe the November race might run as high as $1 million. And that's certainly what is going to attract the cream of America's top NASCAR drivers. And the draft that we saw today, as I pointed out a little earlier, between maybe 3 or 4 drivers, you can expect that between upwards of 20 drivers come November. So I think it's a very exciting period for Australian motorsport. Not forgetting, of course, the Australian Touring Car Championship that comes up on the 7 Network next weekend. In the meantime, we're going to take a break and return, of course, to Calder Park Thunderdome for presentations and a talk with a few of the drivers who unfortunately didn't make victory lane here this afternoon.
Anytime you want me, you can come around. But only 60 separates me and the...
Welcome back to Calder Park Thunderdome. We've been watching, of course, the inaugural Goodyear 500, won this afternoon by Neil Bonnet from Bobby Allison and, of course, Dave Marcus. Many stories concerning this race. Probably the most exciting one concerned a fellow who was the first car out. Not so much the driver, but the man who travelled with the car to Australia.
The lure of racing in a strange and faraway land has a strong pull on some people. This car was in the ship that sailed from Los Angeles, was on the water for 3 weeks, and in it was an unwitting stowaway, the engine builder. He was put in the car by its owners. He was provided a sleeping bag, a pillow, as you can see, there wasn't much room in there, and certain provisions. He couldn't stand the confinement, and after 3 days, he came out of the ship and was arrested by the captain. He was turned over to Australian immigration authorities, deloused, they say, quarantined for 2 days, and then released in the custody of Calder Thunderdome owner Bob Jane. He's here on the grounds now, working off his return fare doing menial labor. Mitch, this is Mitch Klon, the famous stowaway. Mitch, what was in the car besides the sleeping bag and the pillow?
There was a bag of groceries, which was 2 cans of Spam, can of tuna, 2 boxes of dry cereal, 3 bags of candy, 2 boxes of Twinkies, box of cookies, and that was about it.
For 10,000 miles. You couldn't stand it. It was down in the hold and dark. You finally got out where you could see some fresh air, right?
Yes, sir. It was about 3 days before I went outside, and I just got tired of being down there, so I just went up and decided to get some fresh air.
2 boxes of Twinkies, can you believe that? Our stowaway, who finally made it here, he's been cleaning up around the grounds, and I guess he'll be headed back to the United States sometime this week. It's been quite an exciting Goodyear 500 here at Calder Park Thunderdome this afternoon. Gary Wilkinson is down trackside. Before we go to Gary, though, let me remind you, motorsport continues on the Australian Television Network next Sunday afternoon with round 1 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. What a season it promises. 9 exciting rounds. 7, of course, has all the action, so make sure you join us next Sunday. In the meantime, let's go trackside now to Gary Wilkinson.
Well, down here at trackside, I think time to get some final impressions from Chris Economaki of the United States about today's race and about the Calder Thunderdome. Chris?
Well, I thought the race was very interesting, and the Thunderdome is a magnificent place thanks to this man, Bob Jane. We don't have too many entrepreneurs left in motorsports anymore, and this guy's #1 in this century. Congratulations, Bob, on a great facility, and may it have a long life and a profitable one.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your comments.
Bob, you had an enormous crowd, 46,000. Everything just went so well. It's just phenomenal for you, I think, to put the lid on a lot of knockers you've had to suffer over the last 4 or 5 years while you've been getting this off the ground.
That's right, Gary. Well, as you say, it's been a great day. We've had a good race. I mean, there are better races, but for the first one, I think it's been a milestone for us, and it's a foundation for much bigger and better things in the future. Thanks to the help of the people we've got, the American drivers, NASCAR, people like Chris from the United States, gave us a great bit of flavour.
Well, experience counts for everything, doesn't it? And Bonnet and Bobby Allison certainly proved that here today.
They sure did. They're wonderful people. They're great ambassadors for the United States and great ambassadors for NASCAR.
enormous bad luck for Dick Johnson, especially for Alan Grice, but it's just good to hear that he's okay.
It sure is. Well, of course, that's a learning curve. Alan and I talked about these things, and whilst we didn't want it to happen, it's expected, I suppose.
Bob, what's next on the plan for Thunderdome? It just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Well, we keep working and making it better and getting more seats and better facilities, and we've got another 5 races this year. We had 6 altogether. This is number 1.
Well, I tell you what, by the time we get to number 6, Chris, I think it's just going to be outstanding.
I think the Americans are going to steal the girl who won the very first race here for our Charlotte Daytona Dash Series.
Well,
she
that
put
was
on a great show.
She certainly did. What about other American drivers? Do you think this is going to draw them down here in the future?
Well, the weather, and everybody has nice things to say about you and your countrymen. It's such a pleasure to visit here. The Australian people are fun-loving, and, you know, it's a great place to visit.
Can the Australian drivers crack it in America after what you've seen of Alan Grice there at Charlotte and now here?
I think the drivers can make it, but I think the pit crews have to get skilled. The pit stops, the American crews are so well drilled, and there's a dozen of them on each car, and that's going to be the problem foreigners have in the United States.
Chris, fantastic to have you here again in Australia to work with us on the Australian Television Network. Bob, congratulations once again. What a phenomenal day it's been out here. The Goodyear 500, the first NASCAR race ever held in Australia. Neil Bonnet, the winner, from Bobby Allison, a tremendous finish. And I hope you can join us again on the 7 Network next week. We return to Calder, first round, the Australian Touring Car Championship.